Chapter 855, Conflict. An enormous and blinding green ball of light consumed the 1,000 people. Boom! The burning light was like a sun. People's vision turned white. In that moment, people only saw the light and couldn't hear a thing. Time seemed to stop in this moment. Their mouths were wide, their faces pale and their minds blank. When the wave of air rushed at them, they seemed to be whipped and thrown into the air. The wave of air spread in all directions like an unstoppable herd of beasts. Silence, deathly silence. In the sky, Qin Shao had a blank expression as he looked down. His gaze did not show any pride. He seemed to have just carried out in simple action. This really was not anything major. Qin Shao had roamed with Wuxia Mo in the endless void for so many years. What kind of danger had he not encountered? Oh, they weren't dead. Qin Shao looked around and then showed an expression of satisfaction. While Silly Bird had beaten Black Gold, she hadn't killed him. This was an important point. Yet seeing this calm expression, none one present had any thoughts of fighting back. The space in front of the gates was in ruins. More than 1,000 people were sprawled out on the ground unconscious. Not even one was standing. Who still has objections? Qin Shao's young voice echoed in the sky above the city master's mansion. He remembered that Black Gold had been beaten repeatedly by Silly Bird. That incident had left a deep impression on Qin Shao. Even the most rebellious would be good after being beaten a few times. Complete silence. People looked in terror at the figure of the youth in the sky. The remaining Shen power fluctuations in the air still caused fear. It was not nether Shen power. The youth's Shen power did not have vibrations of nether presence. Some started to speculate about the origins of the youth, but no one dared to make a sound. No one doubted that this slightly young-looking youth had the power to flatten all of Wuxia City. The youth had clearly restrained himself. The people on the ground were all unconscious, but no one had died. Blood had not flowed, but the youth's astounding control of Shen power made people feel even colder. Such a large-scale attack, and such precise control. If they did not see it with their own eyes, they would not believe it. Had he started cultivating from when he was conceived? People suddenly thought of that mysterious white-haired elder behind the youth. Many people's thoughts started to turn lively. Big leg. This was a thick and big leg. Wuxia Mo did not care at all about what happened outside. There wasn't much information he could gather from Wuxia City, but one thing was confirmed. Up until now, no god-level experts had appeared. Right now, the only things that could threaten Wuxia Mo were god-level experts. Wuxia Mo did not feel relaxed. In truth, he was pressured. This indescribable pressure came from Lin Qian. Ever since he heard that Lin Qian had been in seclusion for 10 years, Wuxia Mo knew that Lin Qian could come out at any time. If Lin Qian came out, he would definitely be god-level. Wuxia Mo's body needed time to heal. Wuxia Mo measured his Shen power progress and shook his head inwardly. If it continued at this rate, it probably will take him 3 years to completely recover. In order to seal Wei Sheng and the others, Wuxia Mo's body had been fundamentally damaged, and heavily damaged at that. In order to increase their vitality, almost all of the materials he gained in these 10 years had been used on the 5 coffins and the little ones. Wuxia Mo had not progressed at all. He had managed to survive by sheer will. His body was damaged to the point it could not produce Shen power on its own. The greatest difference in Shen power after entering God level was the process of its burn and refinement. When God levels fought, their Shen power burned like fire but was stable. Their Shen power was exponentially more condensed than those not in God level. Wuxia Mo's body was in a terrible state, but his Shen power was 50 times more condensed than before. In other words, the Shen power that he absorbed needed to be compressed 50 times after refinement. Shen power was one of the strongest powers. When other powers were turned into Shen power, the amount was already small, and after being refined and compressed, the amount was minuscule. This was also the reason God level was powerful. Shen power 50 times more condensed, and their power was 100 times stronger than Shen power before. This was a fundamental difference. The refined Shen power was used to repair Zhuomo's body. When Zhuomo's body recovered, its ability to produce Shen power would also recover, and Zhuomo's Shen power recovery would quickly increase. God levels were one of the strongest beings in the world. This strength didn't just come from their power, even their bodies were powerful. The ability of their bodies to produce Shen power surpassed the Shen formations on Zhuomo's chariot. If Zhuomo's body was completely recovered, he could refine Shen power to 100 times. However, if the body of a god level was damaged, it also needed refined Shen power. Zhuomo's body was like that. Shen power that was not compressed 50 times was not of any use to his body. It was too slow, relying just on the power that the chariot absorbed from the world. He had to think of a way. At this time, a servant reported that the city master was visiting. The 10 servants that Qin Shao had picked had started to work without needing any orders. Qin Shao had made good choices. Zhuomo had even found an ancient bloodline in one of them. However, he did not plan on spending much energy on these people. He gave them to Qin Shao to train. It was a way for him to gain experience. Zhuomo decided to see this city master. Junior greets elder. The city master bowed respectfully. We are a little rural town, we do not know manners. If there is something we lack in our care, elder, please have tolerance. Then he took out a gray piece of wood the thickness of an arm and presented it with 2 hands. He said respectfully. This is nether ghostine heavy wood, elder, please accept it. Zhuomo beckoned and that gray wood landed in his hands. This wood was not eye-catching, but it was extremely heavy, as hard as steel and filled with nether energy. Zhuomo was slightly surprised. It was the first time he encountered materials of this kind. After studying it for a few moments, he felt that this item was a good treasure. He put the nether ghostine heavy wood in the ring and said straightforwardly, "This is good and I will accept it." "What is your request?" The city master was overjoyed. "This is just a token of Junior sincerity." Zhuomo waved his hand and interrupted the other's words. "There's no need to say such things, it's just a trade. If it is something I can resolve, speak." The city master did not hesitate when he saw this. He knelt and begged sincerely. Junior only asks for elder to protect his family. Zhuomo's brow furrowed slightly. This request was clearly unexpected. But he thought, it may not be a bad thing. Even if he was a god level now, his individual power was still limited. After a moment of thought, Zhuomo spoke, "Stand up and speak." Hearing this, the city master was about to speak when an extremely arrogant voice came from outside. "The Tomb guard has matters here, get out of the way." The city master's expression changed. Zhuomo's mind shifted and he saw the situation outside. A troop of about 300 people were marching ferociously towards the city master's mansion. Looking at the city master whose expression had changed dramatically, Zhuomo decided to stand by and watch. The 2 servants guarding the gates of the mansion changed expression but still stepped out. "Halt!" The MO leading the troop had a snarl. With a wave of his hand, the 2 seemed to be hit and slammed into the city master's mansion like sandbags. Zhuomo's face suddenly turned cold. Qin Shao was yearning to go. He was at a hot-blooded age, and didn't fear fighting at all. "A Shao, break his arms and legs." Zhuomo said coolly. "All right." Qin Shao was excited. Before he finished speaking, his body had disappeared. The MO who had charged through the gates suddenly stopped. He was experienced in combat and had exceptional senses towards danger. He shouted in shock, "Form the formation." Before he finished, a green shadow appeared in his view like a ghost. A feeling of extreme danger rose. His hairs stood on end. He didn't dare to hesitate. All the Shen power in his body gathered together, nether Shen power wrapping around his right fist as he punched out. Nether Tiger Fist. A grey fist energy like a roaring nether beast leapt at the green shadow. Thick killing intent and the dark and cold nether energy wrapped together was unstoppable. Qin Shao was interested. He snickered and breathed. A similar green light lighting up on his right fist. The green light layered rapidly and then became clear like glass. Sky Glass Wave. The Sky Wave Fist was actually a very simple fist scripture. After Zhuemo modified it, he gave it to Qin Shao. Zhuemo taught Qin Shao everything. Other than the Green Vine Shen methodology, he taught many other techniques. After entering God level, Zhuemo's vision reached an unprecedented breadth. All that he had learned in the past were transformed into new things in his hands. The Sky Wave Fist scripture was one of those. Qin Shao was the descendant of the Greenvine tribe and had pure ancient blood. His comprehension was exceptional and his Shen power cultivation was faster than the average person. Pew! The green fist energy effortlessly passed through the nether tiger fist energy. The Yin Tomb Guard was startled. They did not care about their face as they tried to dodge to the side. The green and glassy fist energy dangerously brushed past where he had just been. He sighed slightly in relief. Where had old man Qin found such a powerful expert? Boom! The fist energy exploded without any warning. The Yin Tomb Guard was stunned as though he had been smashed. Qin Shao did not hesitate to move up. Crack 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 crack. Briskly breaking this person's hand and feet, he flashed in front of Zhuemo and threw the unconscious Yin Tomb Guard to the ground. Big brother, done. He was still hungry for battle. This guy wasn't hardy at all. Zhuemo nodded. Clean up the people outside. All right. Qin Shao did not waste words. He disappeared with another flash. Sounds came from outside, and there were wails and muffled grunts. Moments later, Qin Shao flashed back into the mansion with a relaxed expression. Big brother, all of them are unconscious. The city master gaped with wide eyes. Chapter 856, Zhuemo nodded. He then pointed at the two servants who had been attacked at the gates. Pick a simple Shen methodology and teach them. The other servants had expressions of envy. Earning a Shen methodology due to being knocked unconscious, it was a great profit. They decided that if they encountered danger in the future, they could not retreat. Zhuemo saw the changes in expression of the other servants. He was practiced at leading by example and using fair reward and punishment. While he did not plan on spending too much time on these servants, after establishing Mo Cloud C's rules and motivating culture, he did this out of habit. Zhuemo turned and said to the city master. Speak slowly, do not skip anything, do not hide anything. The city master was completely won over. This white-haired youth elder in front of him was not one of the old people whose minds had been turned pedantic by cultivation. He hurriedly started to explain in detail. Outside the city master's mansion, countless eyes stared at this scene. Old man Wu Qin's luck is about to turn around, a middle-aged person sighed. This old guy's luck is really too good. A male that looked slightly androgynous couldn't resist saying after a moment of silence. His expression was strange. These two had thought that the Wu family would not be able to escape this calamity. They hadn't expected a terrifyingly powerful expert to appear, and in a blink, reverse the situation. Did you discover the origins of that white-haired youth? The androgynous male said with a frown. While old man Wu says elder, I have a feeling that he is young. The middle-aged man said gravely, he came out of the cold nether bog. He first appeared in Little Serene Town. According to the locals, when this person came to Little Serene Town, he was dragging 5 coffins. The androgynous man jumped in fright. 5 coffins? Is he a corpse refining Mo? Coming out of the cold nether bog? He was truly given a fright. Wuxia City was not far from Little Serene Town. No one knew better than they did what the cold nether bog was like. Everyone knew that the cold nether bog was filled with countless treasures, but no one ever dared to go in deep. Only some local hunters could exist on the outskirts of the cold nether bog. The core of the cold nether bog was a forbidden land of death. A person that came out dragging 5 coffins from the cold nether bog, the forbidden land of death, probably breathed poison. From any angle, this person was one they could not provoke. The middle-aged person's throat was slightly dry. When he learned of this news, he had been shocked as well. He suppressed his fear and said gravely, "I don't know where he came from. I'm afraid that his strength can match Gai Yuan of the Yin Tomb Guards." Gai Yuan. The androgynous male exclaimed in shock. How is it possible? Gai Yuan Darren is unfathomable in power. He was the one to build the reputation of the Yin Tomb Guards in the recent years. No matter how strong that white-haired guy is, he cannot be compared to Gai Yuan Darren. Let's reconsider our plans carefully. The middle-aged person did not argue and only reminded, the water here is too deep. If we are not careful, our families will both drown. The androgynous male became silent. He knew that the other was right. They had originally thought that Old Man Wu was finished this time. They hadn't expected someone powerful to disrupt the situation, and the situation to become confusing again. How about we watch a bit more? The androgynous man could not decide and said with a hesitant expression. The middle-aged man was silent. This matter was too important. It could decide the life and death of his family. He did not dare to rashly decide. Zhuemo had never thought that he would be pulled into an internal conflict in the Nether Realm. Ever since the Nether King had united all of the Nether Realm, he had remained out of view. The last time he had appeared was 5 years ago. In the last 5 years, the Nether King never appeared in public again. Even the 4 Nether Lords had never seen the Nether King. A recent while ago, the Nether King had appeared in public and suddenly mentioned the matter of selecting a successor. It had to be stated that the Nether King did not have any children. Up until now, the background of the Nether King was a mystery. No one knew anything. The Nether King had appeared out of nowhere. Everywhere he passed, the factions submitted to him, the experts bowed their heads, and he created his kingdom. If the Nether King had children, then there was nothing to say about the matter of succession. The Nether King was unparalleled in battle, and healthy. It didn't seem a problem for him to live a century or more. No one would even dare to have thoughts. But the Nether King did not have children. Mentioning this matter now seemed to imply that he wanted to decide this matter before his death neared. After the Nether King made this declaration, the people below naturally became lively. The most likely to succeed was the 4 Nether Lords. Each Nether Lord was a powerful expert. Each of them had been personally defeated by the Nether King in the past. Each of them were skilled in war and accomplished. The 4 Nether Lords ruled over an area, and they had great warriors and skilled advisors in their service. Even more importantly, all 4 Nether Lords were in the prime of their lives. Any one of them would be a good successor to the throne. The Nether Realm immediately became full of turbulence. The Nether Realm being closed off was a direct consequence of this matter. Originally, a matter like this wouldn't have anything to do with the small Wuxia city, yet the ripples of the conflict still touched this Jia. Ripples on higher levels meant that those below started to clash between themselves, especially in matters like this where they had to take sides. Wuxia city was not large, but it had a unique product called black nether metal. Black nether metal was one of the materials used to make nether armor. While it was not used in great amounts, it was important. For the little Wuxia city, this caused their situation to become terrible. The Yin Tomb Guards were the closest to Wuxia city, so they were the first to come and request for Wuxia city to hand over this mine. Of course Wuxia city refused, and the 2 sides did not part amiably. Then a few more factions came to talk with Wuxia city, which displeased the Yin Tomb Guards. The friction between the two sides quickly rose. Hearing this, Swaemo was slightly puzzled. The Tomb guards do not have any restraints. The city master of Wuxia City had a grimace. Elder may not know. The Tomb guards are not as powerful as the four great netherlords, but they are special. The Tomb guards were one of King's earliest battalions, deeply trusted by King and were stationed to guard the 10,000 tombs of the netherworld. 10,000 tombs of the netherworld. It was the first time Swaemo heard this name. The master of Wuxia City explained, the 10,000 tombs of the netherworld is a land of bones that is endless. Tombs are packed in there, and innumerable. It is where the nether energy is greatest in all of the nether realm. While the Tomb guards are not large, their status is high. Swaemo finally understood most of it. It was most likely that the Tomb guards wanted to obtain the black nether mine of Wuxia City. It would add some chips for the Tomb guard to deal with the upcoming storm. A man's wealth is his own ruin by causing the greed of others. Wuxia City had such a tempting mine, but no ability to protect it. It was natural for calamity to come. Will this not end if you give up the black nether mine? Swaemo asked. Wuxia City master grimaced again. But Netherlord Hai Xian Bing has already ordered for us to deliver 30,000 caddies of black nether ore in 3 months, otherwise. Otherwise? Swaemo asked interestedly. Otherwise my entire clan will be executed. City master of Wuxia City cried. Junior wants to give up the mine. However, Hai Xian Bing Darren always abides by his declarations. If we do not deliver 30,000 caddies of black nether metal in time, and the Tomb guard is only willing to accept the mine. Swaemo had an expression of sympathy as he thought inside. It was clear that Hai Xian Bing also wanted this mine. The Tomb guards were no willing to help the city master of Wuxia City against Hai Xian Bing. The pitiful city master was stuck in the middle, and would naturally be the worst off. The Tomb guards and Hai Xing Bing's battle was clearly at a stage where both sides were probing each other. The tragedy was that Wuxia City was the target both sides chose to use as the test. The two sides were using Wuxia City to test the confidence and bottom line of the other side. How do you want me to help you? Swaemo asked the city master of Wuxia City. The city master knelt on the ground. Junior is willing to gift the mine to Elder, only hoping that Elder can protect the safety of Junior's family. What do I need your mine for? Swaemo laughed. His mind suddenly moved and he sank into thought. At this time, the leader of the Tomb guard woke up. Hearing this, he was furious and he said angrily, Old man Wu, you dare. You collude with those outside the race. Swaemo waved his hand. Snap, the leader flew out as though he had been whipped. He smashed to the ground and was unconscious again. All right, I will accept the mine. Swaemo raised his head and said to the city master. As to the safety to your family, you have 2 choices. One is to follow me, the other is that I will negotiate with them and have them not make trouble for you. Our entire family is willing to follow Darren. The city master said unhesitatingly. He could see clearly that he was like a fleshy bone that had been tossed out to the dogs. In the end, someone would eat him. He did not care about the mine any longer, he only hoped to protect his clansmen. He was angry at the Tomb guards for wanting the mine but not being willing to protect his clansmen. Rather than that, it was better to give the mine to Elder to trade for the safety of his family. It was easy to choose between the 2 options. With his understanding of the Tomb guards, once Elder left, they would definitely extract revenge. Swaemo was slightly surprised at this old man's decisiveness. A hint of admiration flashed through his eyes. Good. Swaemo nodded. Have Qin Shao go to your clan to pick 10 young people. They will learn from Qin Shao in the future. The city master of Wuxia City was overjoyed. Many thanks, Darren. He rejoiced that he had not judged wrong. Darren was not a cruel person. With Qing Shao Darren's guidance, these 10 clansmen would have bright futures. He had seen Qing Shao Darren's great strength with his own eyes. Zhuemo then said coolly, "Send someone to tell the Yin Tomb guards and High Xian Bing that I have the mine. Have them come talk to me." Hearing Zhuemo's cool and calm words, for some reason, Old Man Wu's terror was swept away. He bowed and said, "Yes." Chapter 857, Guidance. What do you know about his origins? Gu Yan had a grave face. He was one of High Xian Bing's great generals and responsible for the matter of Wuxia City. Gu Yan was about 40 years old, dressed like a scholar, and his eyes would occasionally flash with cold light. Each Nether Lord had the right to build their own mansion. High Xian Bing's Northern Plains Ice Mansion was full of dragons and tigers. Gu Yan was deeply trusted by High Xian Bing Darren, but he did not dare to slack off. The infighting inside the mansion far surpassed people's imaginations. A mere black nether metal mine was not enough to personally disturb High Xian Bing. Origins unknown, but he walked out of the cold nether bog, just outside Little Serene Town. When he appeared he was dragging 5 coffins. Then he traveled using an extraordinary chariot. Everywhere it passed, wind and thunder roared. The intelligence network of Northern Plain Ice Mansion was extensive, they had investigated thoroughly in a short time. This person has completely white hair, but his face is young. His true age is hard to estimate. He has a youth with him, about 20 or so, who is extremely powerful. Supposedly, Tuoba Min of the Yin Tomb guards lost in one exchange. The 200 guards with Tuoba Min were defeated in a short amount of time. Tuoba Min. Gu Yan frowned. The name sounded familiar, but he could not recall the individual. The subordinate hurriedly said, "He is Tuoba Yes' younger brother, but he is not as strong as his older brother. He is a colonel in the Yin Tomb guards." Gu Yan nodded. "Ah, he's the younger brother of Tuoba Yu." He knew Tuoba Yu. This person was a famed expert among the Yin Tomb guards. The 3 Serene Shin sword, the other had created was unique. In the Nether Realm, there were only a few that cultivated sword scriptures. This person was outstanding in talent and only in love with sword scriptures. After he created the 3 Serene Shin sword, his fame rose. He was recruited by the Yin Tomb guards and he had had great accomplishments in these years. Thinking about the rumors about Tuoba Yu, Gu Yan laughed. "Tuoba Yu will not let this rest. We will just watch. As for the Wuxia City envoy, tell him I wish to consider our response and have him wait a few days." "Yes," the subordinate acknowledged. In the inky black pool, the medicinal fluid moved as though it was alive. A strange field of power covered the entire pool and did not let any presence of the pool escape. Silly Bird's eyes were narrowed as she laid by the side of the pool as though she was napping. Lil Pagoda, Lil Black, and Lil Fire played happily by the side. The 3 had greatly changed in appearance. Lil Pagoda's yin-yang fish eyes had disappeared. Right now, its body was snowy white with black eaves. It was still round and fleshy. There was a clear pearl at the top that was the size of a thumb and there seemed to be a black mist that roiled inside the bead. Lil Fire had consumed an unknown amount of void sky-ly fire in the endless void. Chun Yu Cheng had Lil Fire cultivate the fire heart-bone refining art. Having consumed countless void sky-ly fire, Lil Fire had cultivated the fire heart-bone refining art to a deep level. However, this didn't seem to be of any use except making Lil Fire even rounder and bouncier. But this did not ruin Lil Fire's mood to play. It bounced like a rubber ball. Its best play partner was Lil Pagoda. The game the 2 liked to play the most was juggling. Lil Pagoda would jump up, and then Lil Fire would keep bouncing off Lil Pagoda from all angles so that Lil Pagoda would not fall back to the ground. Lil Black was much larger than in the past. It was now about half a palm large. The two antennae moved constantly. It moved quickly like a wisp of black smoke. 10th grade, Sunshine, the black gold seal soldier, and the ghost mist child were all in deep slumber. In the endless void, the little ones had taken turns to protect Suemo. The materials in the endless void were too high in grade for them. They needed a lot of time to absorb each one. Suddenly, Silly Bird opened her eyes. The black medicinal pool roiled and a figure slowly floated out of the surface. The Sun-Shin glyph slid back into Zuomo's body. He slowly exhaled and opened his eyes to show a satisfied expression. Using the medicinal pool to repair his body was much better than just absorbing Shin power and other powers. He had used almost all of the high-level materials in Wugu City stores. For his present level, only those high-level materials were useful. The nether ghostine heavy wood that Old Man Wu had presented had been crucial. It was not of ordinary quality, and was full of nether energy, but it also had the ability to create vitality and unexpected property. Nether energy was death energy. However, this meant that any thread of vitality formed in such thick death energy was pure. This extremely pure thread of vitality was a great aid to Zuomo's damaged body. In order to completely use the nether ghostine heavy wood to its fullest effect, Zuomo had created this medicinal pool. This thread of vitality could match 1 month's effect of the Shin glyphs. It astounded Zuomo. Zuomo rose from the medicinal pool and had a small smile. The little ones that were playing immediately floated over when they saw Zuomo come out. They brushed against Zuomo and played with him for a while before leaving the room. Outside the mansion, Qin Shao was teaching the 10 Wu clan youths. Darren. Old Man Wu hurriedly came over to welcome him. Zuomo waved his hand and motioned that he wished to watch on his own. The youths looked at Qin Shao with gazes full of respect and awe. News of Qin Shao's powerful display had spread through Wugu City. Everyone knew. Qin Shao's teaching method was simple. He would teach them the Shin methodology and then use real combat to explain. A short time later, the youths all had dusty faces. But these Wu clan youths were not dispirited. They could clearly feel that the Shin methodology that Qin Shao Darren had taught them was much stronger than the Shin methodology that they cultivated. The 10 servants that had been selected were staying far away. In the nether realm, eavesdropping and attempting to secretly learn the skills of others was a taboo. Qin Shao had never taught before, but he was serious when he did. If he could not explain it clearly, he would just demonstrate. Yet after Zuomo watched for a while, he found that even though Qin Shao taught seriously, and the Wu clan disciples were concentrating, the effect was not very good. After some thought, Zuomo understood. Qin Shao was strong, but he did not have a great understanding of nether Shin power. These youths were not old, but they had a base in cultivating nether Shin power. Being forced to cultivate another Shin methodology greatly diminished any effect. He clapped his hand. Stop for a second. Qin Shao and the Wu clan members stopped. Zuomo pointed randomly at one of the Wu clan members. Demonstrate what you usually cultivate for me. When this Wu family disciple heard this, he started to demonstrate the Wu clan's Wu Gushin methodology. It could be seen that this disciple worked hard on his cultivation, and he was practiced in his demonstration. Zuomo watched for a while before indicating for the demonstration to stop. Then he started to move, each action extremely slow and without Shin power. However, each move and action was filled with terrifying power. The Wu clan disciples' mouths gaped and eyes wide. They hadn't thought that the Wu Gushin methodology would have such power. As Zuomo demonstrated, he explained. Every Wu clan disciple focused with the utmost concentration in fear of missing a word. They found that the Wu Gushin methodology that Darren spoke on was not the same as what they were cultivating had Darren cultivated Wu Gushin methodology in the past. Old Man Wu was completely stunned where he stood. He had cultivated Wu Gushin methodology the longest. The Wu clan leader who had created this Shen methodology had passed away, and Old Man Wu was the person with the greatest skill at Wuxia methodology in the clan. The explanations by Darren seemed to clear his mind. Many places he had been puzzled by were cleared up. He was overjoyed, but he did not dare to be careless. He opened his ears and listened carefully. Zuemo spoke for about 2 hours on the entire Wuxia methodology. He spoke from beginning to end and changed many places. The new Wuxia methodology was completely transformed, their cultivation efficiency and power greatly increasing. Old Man Wu had been immersed in it for many years and knew that this new Wuxia methodology would be able to make it into the top class of Shen methodologies in the Nether realm. With this completely new Wuxia methodology, the Wu family would definitely prosper. Old Man Wu's face was covered in tears. He couldn't help but cry at having his dream of many years come true. When Zuemo finished his lecture, Old Man Wu prostrated himself on the ground and kowtowed. He sobbed, "The Wu family will follow Darren for your grace of recreating us." Zuemo jumped in fright and helped the other back up. "Just a minor matter, there is no need for this." The creator of the Wuxia methodology had been limited by their own cultivation. The fundamentals of this Shen methodology were very weak. Zuemo had changed many places, but the core of the Shen methodology had not changed. If even the core was changed, then this Shen methodology would not be the Wuxia methodology. It would then be better to give them a new methodology. Zuemo had just leveled up the Wuxia methodology, to use it to its full potential. Something like this was not a matter that Zuemo thought too much of. Zuemo did not conceal this and honestly told all of this to Old Man Wu. Old Man Wu shook his head and said, "The Wu clan is not a large clan. If we have an extremely good Shen methodology, it will not bring prosperity to the Wu family but calamity. The Wuxia methodology that Darren has remade is the best Shen methodology for the Wu family." Zuemo had a new opinion of Old Man Wu. Old Man Wu was not strong, but his foresight was great, he was perceptive. This was a talented person. Zuemo always desired talent. "It is good that you can think like this," Zuemo said with a smile. He then thought of another question. "Where can I buy materials like the nether ghostine heavy wood?" If he could have more of those materials, Zuemo's problem of repairing his body would drastically shorten in time. Old Man Wu shook his head. This subordinate accidentally obtained that nether ghostine heavy wood. It is hard to buy a material like that on the market. If someone has it, they would carefully keep it hidden away. Is there not a market for high-level materials? Zuemo asked. He had a lot of things that were valuable, but these things were not valuable to repairing his body, so he did not urgently need them. If he could trade them for things like the nether ghostine heavy wood, it would be good for Zuemo. Old Man Wu had a thoughtful expression. This Jia does not have one, but this subordinate heard that in Nether Insect Jia, there is a place called the Peerless Market which only does high-level material business. Maybe Darren could go there to see. Zuemo had a Jia map of the Nether realm. The Nether Insect Jia was not far from Wuxia City. He noted it down. Just at this time, the ground under his feet trembled minutely. Zuemo suddenly raised his head, a cold smirk at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 858, Qing Shao, this is Wuxia City. Tuobayu raised his head to look at the nearby city and asked expressionlessly. He carried a black broadsword on his back. The three-eyed metal-spiked beast under him growled. Its 3 red eyes flashed with a vicious light, the armor that covered it shimmered with a metallic sheen. Its short and strong legs meant it was extremely steady even when it was sprinting. Yes. The subordinate hurriedly said. Tuoba's guards were all strong and brave. They had aloof expressions as they sat on moving on the Mo steeds. With a glance, it could be seen that they were battle-hardened elites. Tuobayu had personally chosen these 500 guards. His personality was fiery, bloodthirsty and battle-hungry. These 500 guards were the same as him. They never feared battle. Whenever the offensive forces encountered a setback, it would be their turn to arrive onto the stage. "Do not leave even one of the Wu clan alive," Tuoba Yu said coldly. No one spoke, but the eyes of the guards immediately flashed a bloodthirsty red. Once Tuoba Darin gave the order for a massacre, it meant that they could start to kill in large numbers. Tuoba Yu lightly urged on the three-eyed spiked beast under him. The three-eyed spiked beast suddenly bent down low and then sprinted out. Almost at the same time, 500 mo steeds advanced. The three-eyed spiked beast was enormous and heavy like a small mountain. The noise it made when it sprinted was astounding. The 500 mo steeds were all nightmare fire nether horses. They had strong legs, metal hooves. Their gallop was fast, and when their hooves hit the ground, it was like the rumbling of a thunderstorm. The earth trembled. The booming rumble seemed to come from the ground, deep and with a heart-shaking power. The sharp alarms of Wuxia City tore through the sky. The 500 mo steeds were like an unstoppable iron flood. They were extremely fast and the packed rattle of the hooves seemed to be striking at people's hearts and minds. It was suffocating. The battle general at the front suddenly raised the black broadsword. Great murderousness gathered on that upraised black broadsword. A layer of grey suddenly shrouded the black broadsword. The murderousness suddenly disappeared, but the strange feeling of emptiness was the calm before the storm. The black sword swung down. Hiss. A grey sword energy charged in front of the city guards at a speed hard for the naked eye to catch. It reflected on the shocked expressions of the guards. Boom! The city gates and walls of Wuxia City shattered under the sword energy. An enormous gap the width of 20 zhang suddenly appeared. The Mo steed flood charged in with an unstoppable momentum. The Mo steeds did not slow down when they entered the city. They were like a sharp sword that penetrated directly. The three-eyed spiked beast and the nightmare fire nether beasts were astoundingly powerful. The hard and regular stone brick paths shattered like a crisp biscuit under their hooves. Rubble flew everywhere. The ground was plowed up wherever they passed. All of Wuxia City trembled. The killing intent that Tuoba Yu felt reached a peak after continuously accumulating all this time. He suddenly shouted, "Kill! Kill!" The 500 guards shouted angrily. The tangible killing intent swept outwards like a storm that lost control. In front of such savage killing intent, the residents of Wuxia City were minuscule. They were pale and trembled as their minds turned blank. The city master's mansion entered their view. That was their goal. The guards' presence continued to rise. They hunched over on their mounts, their speed increasing again. They needed to use this unstoppable charge to smash this mansion into dust. At this time, Tuoba Yu's pupils suddenly contracted. A youth stood in front of the gates of the mansion. The youth was surrounded by empty space. He was alone. For some reason, Tuoba Yu suddenly had a strong feeling of danger. His instincts that had formed through numerous life-and-death battle caused his to instinctively raise the black broadsword. Kill! His voice like thunder, the sword fell down. Kill! The guards shouted together, their shen power vibrating at the same time. Countless energies gathered towards Tuoba Yu's falling black broadsword at a speed impossible to catch with the naked eye. A strange grey energy appeared on the black broadsword. Tuoba Yu's unique, free nether shen sword. The grey sword energy howled as it charged towards the youth standing in front of the gates. A layer of red appeared on the outside of the grey sword energy as though there were countless wraiths screaming and wailing inside the sword energy. The people who were watching this battle from the distance paled. This grey sword energy seemed to have an eerie attraction. When one looked, they felt as though their mind was about to be pulled into this sword energy. Most of them had heard of Tuoba Yu's name in the past. When they saw him today, their feeling was multiple times as strong. The middle-aged man and the androgynous male were ashen. The two of them represented the two prominent families of Wuxia City. They had their plans, but when they saw such an astounding sword strike, they found that their thoughts were so laughable in front of such absolute power. The Tomb guards were too strong. Tuoba Yu with his 500 soldiers were enough to flatten Wuxia City. During their shock, a green light suddenly lit up in their view. Qin Shao's eyes flashed with excitement. He didn't feel any fear as he stared down the raging flood in front of him. It caused his blood to boil, and his fighting spirit to rise. Qin Shao had witnessed the battle between Chief Elder against Big Brother and the others. That battle could be considered the greatest battle in 10,000 years. Its effect on Qin Shao would last through his entire life. When he struggled alongside Zuomo in the endless void, Qin Shao had progressed astounding fast. Zuomo's unreserved teaching in addition to the harsh conditions of the endless voice made for optimal training conditions. However, in the endless void, Qin Shao did not have anyone else to spar with or compete with. Qin Shao was at a spirited age. Adding on that black gold, the ghost mist child and the others frequently regaled him of Zuomo and Wei Xing's accomplishments in their younger days. Qin Shao yearned to experience something like it. A newborn calf did not fear the tiger. Qin Shao was undoubtedly the newborn calf. He didn't feel any fear at all. Old Man Wu said Tuoba Yu was a famed expert. Qin Shao wanted to be like Big Brother and Teacher Wei, his idols. Qin Shao's thought was simple and modest. Defeat Tuoba Yu. The green pulse string stretched comfortably in the air. Qin Shao's expression was solemn and attentive. He stared closely at the Mo steed flood that was racing towards him. His expression was unmoving like granite. When Tuoba Yu swung his sword with the momentum of 500 Mo steeds, Qin Shao's eyes suddenly lit up. His left leg moved forward, his legs moving into an arch as he sank down, his hands pushing forward slightly. Green thin vine, tens of thousands of hearts united together, protect my clansmen. In a light murmur, the song of the Green Vine clan seemed to revive, stepping out of that ancient era. The green pulse string in the sky seemed to hear a summons and flew rapidly towards Qin Shao's hand. The hair-thin green string vine immediately wove into a wall of vines. Green light flowed from Qin Shao's hands and quickly shrouded the vine wall. The flowing green light did not stop after completely covering the wall of vines. The wall seemed to be nourished, sprouting new buds. The buds grew and spread. In a blink, a verdant green wall of vines formed. Inside the mansion of the city master, Zuomo fell into a slight daze after hearing Qin Shao's murmur. He couldn't help but think of Big Brother Qin Lin. If Big Brother Qin Lin was still alive, he would be comforted if he saw Qin Shao today. The clan of the Green Vine would continue in Qin Shao. The sword energy filled with destruction smashed into the wall of vines. The sword energy suddenly split apart. Boom! A burning ball of light rose and covered the wall of vines. How could a blow that carried the power of 500 people be stopped so easily? The blinding light penetrated through the cracks in the wall of vines. Qin Shao felt his hands grow heavy. The verdant green wall seemed to be in danger of collapsing. He took a deep breath, green light growing in his eyes as the Shen power in his body flooded into the wall of vines. In the endless void, every battle was extremely difficult. With Qin Shao's cultivation he would not have survived in the endless void, if not for Zuomo and Silly Bird's protection. 10 years had passed. While he was still unable to survive in the endless void alone, he could hold his own and participate in the cruel and hard battles. All of the monsters they encountered in the endless void were stronger than he was. This meant that in every one of his battles, the enemy had the upper hand. He was not the only one that was always at a disadvantage. All of the little ones with the exception of Silly Bird occasionally were at a disadvantage. In these disadvantageous fights, he and the little ones continued to struggle to win. Fighting so hard for so long meant that his ability to resist and endure was astounding. While he felt enormous pressure, this kind of pressure wasn't on the same level as the fights he encountered in the endless void. The green energy lighting his eyes aglow, Qin Shao did not reserve any of his Shen power. The sword energy that had exploded had been furiously cutting at the wall of vines. Countless branches flew around. Just as the wall of vines appeared as though it was about to be penetrated by the sword energy, countless new buds suddenly sprouted where the wall had been cut. The new buds grew furiously. The sword energy constantly cut at these newborn leaves, but the new buds grew so quickly. When the light of the sword energy had grown dim, the heavily damaged wall of vines was still growing and repairing. The marks grew fainter and fainter. The furious growth was not just to stop the sword energy. The wall of vines was spreading into the surroundings. When the sword energy dissipated, a large wall of vines about 50 zhang wide and 100 zhang high stood in front of them. It cast an enormous shadow over a large part of Wuxia City, and also covered Tuobayu and his 500 guards that were charging over. Tuobayu only felt the light dimming of the light. The enormous shadow completely covered them. His expression suddenly changed. They had kicked a wall this time. He had never encountered someone that could stop his sword strike, which gathered the power of 500 with just their own power. He had never encountered such a terrifying wall of vines. How could an expert of this level appear at the little Wuxia city? The enormous shadow covered the sun. He suddenly felt the shadow from above was like a bottomless enormous maw that was about to swallow them. Almost instinctively, he realized the danger. At this time, a shout came from ahead, "Go!" That terrifyingly large and tall wall started to press on them. The shadow covered them. Suddenly, they were unable to move as though they were being restrained by countless vines. They could only watch as the wall of vines pressed closer to them. Trap. This definitely was a trap. This was the only thought in Tuobaye's mind before he was consumed by darkness. Chapter 859, Lan Bing. In these tense times, any political shifts would be quickly magnified. The secret struggle between the Yin Tomb guards and the Northern Plains Ice Mansion seemed motionless, but there were countless eyes observing from the shadows. Tuobayu could not be considered a top expert in the Nether Realm, he might not even be called a top-tier expert. However, he was a strong fighter, and one of the best of the Yin Tomb guards. Many people had heard of his name. But such a famed fighter, leading 500 riders, was defeated in one move by an unknown youth. Qin Shao quickly became famous. Anyone with some knowledge understood just how powerful this youth was to have defeated Tuobayu and his 500 head-on. The Mo were the most skilled at using other people's power as their own. With the Shen power of 500 people gathered on Tuobayu, Tuobayu was comparable to a true first-class expert. But Tuobayu was still defeated. What level was someone that could defeat a first-class expert? With one move. This youth that had suddenly appeared was young but had such great power. How could people not be astonished? The white-haired youth dragging the coffins, the grand gold chariot, a powerful youth with a strange green vine. This pair seemed to give off a mysterious aura no matter what aspect you looked at. Both Sui Mo and Qin Shao did not think much of this battle. For them, an enemy of Tuobaye's level was not enough to disturb them. Sui Mo focused his time on repairing his body. That nether ghostine heavy wood was extremely effective, and Sui Mo began to search for similar materials. Old Man Wu had abilities in this area. If it was something Sui Mo ordered, he would always complete the order in outstanding fashion. According to the information he gathered, the borders of the Nether Realm had all been locked down. This was an order that all 4 Nether Lords had sent down together. Before the successor to the king was chosen, the lockdown would not be lifted. Sui Mo could be patient. Since he was unable to communicate with Mo Cloud Sea in the near future, he would first think of ways to recover his Shen power. If his Shen power recovered, the lockdown would not be a big problem to him. The effects of Qing Shao defeating Tuobayu were slightly unexpected to Zuo. Nothing further had to be said of the Wu clan. Old man Wu knew very well that if it wasn't for Darren, the Wu clan would have been killed off. He was even more faithful now. This battle also intimidated the other factions of Wuge City. Qing Shao's great fighting ability caused them to become even more wary. When they heard that Zuo needed high-level materials, all of the families sent some materials. Soon, the materials that were sent were piled into a small mountain. However, there was only one of these materials that was of use to Zuo. It was also not high in quality. But even the smallest mosquito was still meat. Zuo used it. It equaled 5 days of recovery. Zuo knew how to conduct business. He would give back Shin equipment to those that sent him materials. For him, forging Shin equipment did not waste any of his energy. All of the Shin equipment were suited to channeling Nether Shin power and were not of low level. Clever people were everywhere. Gupeng had gone along with the crowd and sent some materials. The Gu family was only a small faction here, and only had some small properties. Gupeng had not wanted to send anything, but seeing everyone else do it, he thought he should send something as well. He had seen that battle with his own eyes. Qing Shao's great power struck him with fear. Gupeng received a gift in return. This surprised him. It seemed that the elder was an amiable person. Gupeng did not care. Usually, gifts sent in return were to represent the other's friendliness and of little value. The gift itself would not be worth much. Gupeng's heart came to rest. Having given out gifts today, at least, it meant that the city master and others would not make trouble for them. Only after he returned home, finishing dinner, he was bored. Only then did he remember the gift he had received earlier in the day. He casually opened the box and was stunned. A grand Shin equipment was lying silently in the box. Gupeng dazedly picked up the Shin equipment. When it entered his hand, a cold feeling came from the Shin equipment. Gupeng was in the business, and his eyes were experienced. Icy blue nether stone that had exquisitely carved flower patterns. These were blue nether glyphs that would only appear when blue nether stone was perfectly forged. The pulped gold that was woven through were hair-thin. Everyone knew how hard it was to forge pulped gold. How great was the skill was needed to forge such thin strands. There were 3 nether glyphs on the Shin equipment. Good thing. This skill was a great deal higher than the present mainstream Shin equipment. It was a rare masterwork. Almost at first glance, Gupeng judged that the value of this Shin equipment far surpassed the materials he had given out today. If the Shin equipment wasn't being held in his hands, Gupeng would not believe his own eyes. His business was not large, and it was extremely rare to encounter something as fine as this. They would use such valuable Shin equipment as a reciprocal gift. Gupeng suspected that the servant had given him the wrong box. During the night, he tossed and turned as he thought if he should return the Shin equipment or not. He did not sleep the entire night. The next morning, he decided to travel towards the mansion of the city master with red eyes. Yet on the way there, the news he received stunned him. Everyone had received a Shin equipment. How was it possible? This was Gupeng's first reaction. How much money was this? This was Gupeng's second reaction. Soon, the clever Gupeng reacted. A daring idea rose in his mind. The white-haired elder was a forger. He suddenly realized that this might be a chance. He turned and sprinted towards his home with excitement. He had a high-level nether material like the nether ghostine heavy wood in his home. He was not the only one that realized this. Zuomo's fishing method was effective. After throwing out the Shin equipment, the amount of materials that were sent to him increased drastically, and there was a clear rise in grade of the gifts he received. Zuo was not frugal with the Shin equipment. The higher the grade of material, the higher the grade of Shin equipment he gave back. However, not every nether material fulfilled Zuomo's requirements. Other people did not know what Mo really needed. There was only a rare few among the majority of materials similar to the nether ghost in heavy wood that had a thread of vitality. Mo searched through the haystack to finally find two that could be used. One of them was a bone, the other a rotten piece of wood. Both of them contained a thread of vitality. Mo put them into the medicinal pool. They equaled 15 days of effort. He had stayed in Wuxia City for 10 days, and didn't waste even one day. He used them all to cultivate. He could get 50 days of effort by using nether materials with the medicinal pool. In other words, in these 10 days, he had obtained 2 months of recovery. His body needed about 3 years to recover. That was 36 months. He had completed 1/18. He could clearly feel the recovery of his body. Mo immediately realized the best way to recover as fast as possible was to get materials like the nether ghost in heavy wood. He used all of the other materials to forge shin equipment. His forging skill was great, and he almost didn't spend anything in forging shin equipment. He also used a very small amount of materials. But there were also problems. Mo found that the concentration of nether energy near Wuxia City had decreased drastically. He had created this problem by himself. The shin formations on the chariot constantly took in the nether energy and ling power from the air to turn into shin power. This was just the shin formations. If Mo's body recovered, he could suck all of the ling power and nether energy, including all vitality, in a breath. That was God level. The amount of power near Wuxia City greatly decreasing meant that Mo's recovery speed would slow down. There was no earth fire near Wuxia City. Otherwise, Mo could absorb fire essence to turn into shin power. Did he have to change locations already? Mo frowned. He had been planning to use the black nether ore to trade for a batch of materials from the tomb guards. Suddenly, Old Man Wu hurriedly came in with an excited face. Darren. What is it? Mo asked without raising his head. An envoy from Hai Xian Bing Darren asks for an audience. Old Man Wu hurriedly said. Oh. Mo had coincidentally finished forging the shin equipment in his hand. He raised his head and said, then have him come in. Hai Xian Bing's envoy was a female. The female's appearance was normal but her figure beautiful, and her presence was clear and ethereal. She bowed towards Mo. This lowly female Lon Bing greets Darren. She had a smile on her face that had a strange approachability. The Nether Lord heard that our mansion had been disrespectful to Elder regarding the matter of the Black Nether Mine. We are greatly apologetic. These 3 Nether Ghost in heavy wood are part of the Nether Lord's collection. She heard that Elder needs them and ordered this attendant to deliver them as fast as possible to express our intentions. She opened the metal box next to her. 3 pieces of nether ghost in heavy wood were in there. Mo's eyes immediately lit up. He could clearly feel that each piece of nether ghost in heavy wood had an extremely pure strand of vitality. 1 piece of nether ghost in heavy wood equaled 1 month of effort. 3 pieces were equivalent to 3 months. Good things. Hai Xian Bing, as expected of a Nether Lord, was so grand with her opening move. For other people, even on piece of nether ghost in heavy wood was so hard to obtain. She easily took out 3 pieces. One had to know that not every nether ghost in heavy wood could form a thread of vitality. Vitality formed from nether energy was an extremely rare event to start with. Yet, all 3 pieces of nether ghost in heavy wood had formed a thread of vitality. They were of great use to Mo. Bing Lan noticed the change in Mo's expression and gave a small smile. As expected. Mo nodded. Thank Nether Lord Hai Xian Bing for me. He waved his hand and the 3 pieces of nether ghost in heavy wood flew into his embrace. If the Nether Lord knows that Elder likes these items, she would be overjoyed, Bing Lan said with a smile and then changed the topic. I heard that Elder is skilled in forging shin equipment. Could Elder broaden Junior's vision? Zhuemo knew the real reason for Lan Bing's visit had come. Chapter 860, Transaction, Yes. Zhuemo had an open expression as he said honestly. Zhuemo was immediately filled with desire towards the Northern Plains Ice Mansion's treasures after seeing the 3 pieces of nether ghostine heavy wood. He even questioned whether or not to rob them if negotiations failed. But if the request was forging Shin equipment, it would be even better. While his Shin power was almost non-existent, his god level was still present, his control of fire was unrivaled. His access to Sun Shin Fire, Silly Bird's Phoenix Flames, Lil Fire's Void Sky Lee Fire, meant he had 3 kinds of Shin Fire to work with. Such a great setup, with so many types of Shin Fire, if this was made public, it would frighten people to death. So Zhuemo was very calm. With his present condition, he might not succeed in robbing them, but no one would be able to surpass him in forging. Could Elder forge Shin devices for us? Lan Bing's gaze was bright. As Zhuemo had expected, the Northern Plains Ice Mansion had given the generous gift in an attempt to obtain Shin devices. It depends on what materials you have. Zhuemo didn't even move from his sitting position as he glanced at Lan Bing. Without good materials, no Shin device can be forged. Lan Bing laughed softly. Elder, you do not have to worry about materials. The Northern Plains Ice Mansion is not the richest of the Nether Realm, but does have the materials to forge a Shin device. Oh, Zhuemo suddenly said, if I remember correctly, the Nether Realm doesn't have a Shin device. Elder really is not from the Nether Realm. Lan Bing said pointedly. Zhuemo did not dodge Lan Bing's gaze and said with a snicker, I'm not, but what does that have to do with anything? Lan Bing realized her rashness and hurriedly bowed in apology. This lowly female was impolite. The other was right. If he could forge Shin devices, it didn't matter if he was from the Nether Realm or not. No one would make trouble for him. Even if he couldn't forge Shin devices, just his skill at forging Shin equipment meant that no one would make a fuss of his background. The Nether Realm was remote and even their communication with the Jia of the 100 Savage Realm was limited. Their communication with the Yao and Xiuzha realms were even more rare. The Mo were not skilled in forging, and the Nether Realm was the same. The Shin equipment of the Xiuzha world could greatly increase offensive strength. They continued to flow to the Yao. The 2 races quickly found that the Shin equipment was effective for them as well. The Yao started to study the forging methods of the Xiuzha, but the Xiuzha had accumulated expertise over many millennia. How could it be so easy to learn? The Yao had found large numbers of forgers with skill to teach them forging, but the Shin equipment that they forged was lacking compared to the Xiuzha. Zhuemo hadn't put much thought into forging Shin equipment he gave out as gifts. He had only forged casually based on his habits. The abilities of these Shin equipment was a great deal better than the Nether Realm Shin equipment on the market. Zhuemo didn't know that the Shin equipment that he had given out rose in price every day. The Northern Plains Ice Mansion was the fastest to act. Zhuemo waved his hand and said carelessly, no matter. Just for these 3 pieces of nether ghostine heavy wood, I will give you some articles of Shin equipment if you want. A few dozen is also alright. If you want a Shin device, then you need to prepare the materials and pay the price first. Lan Bing liked this kind of straightforward style and immediately asked, how much payment does Elder want? 50 pieces of nether ghostine heavy wood of this quality. Zhuemo had an honest expression. Lan Bing was slightly surprised. She had heard before that the white-haired elder had been searching for the nether ghostine heavy wood, so she had picked 3 of good quality. She hadn't thought that this elder would need so much nether ghostine heavy wood. The nether ghostine heavy wood was rare. Even the Northern Plains Ice Mansion didn't have 50 pieces, much less 50 of such quality. But honestly, it was not expensive if they traded 50 pieces of nether ghostine heavy wood for the other to forge a Shin device. It was only slightly troublesome. May other materials be used as substitutes? Lan Bing asked cautiously. Suemo heard this. This was plausible. He was joyed, but he did not change expression. Tomb ghost bone crystal, rotten life wood, yellow spring lotus, they all work, but have to also be of high quality. Lan Bing calculated inside. With 3 more types of materials to choose from, it was much easier to gather 50 items. All right. But it will take time to gather these materials. Elder, please wait for a while. Lan Bing unhesitatingly agreed. Suemo knew as well that it would not be an easy matter to gather so many materials, but little Mo Gu was a clever person. He said, "That's fine, bring as much as you can. The forging of a Shin device is not so easy, it also requires time." Lan Bing did not doubt him. She had never seen a Shin device forged and naturally didn't know the process. But Shin devices were rare, and it definitely would be the product of more than a day's work. With this assumption, Lan Bing nodded and said, "No problem." Suemo was overjoyed. If he could really get these materials, his recovery would be complete in no time. Lan Bing suddenly said, "It is embarrassing to speak of, but our mansion does not have a forging department. We have more than 30,000 forgers, but their skill is about the same. The reason is that they always have lacked a master to learn from. If Elder is willing to be the head of the forging department, the payment can be negotiated." Lan Bing looked as though she was willing to pay a great price. Suemo was slightly surprised. 30,000 forgers. This was not a small number. 10 years ago, Mo Cloud C's forgers would not have much more than this number. Suemo knew that the expenses in training forger was high. If Mo Cloud C hadn't just managed to catch the market at that time, when Mo Cloud C Shin equipment did not lack demand, it would not have been so simple to train so many forgers. Northern Plains Ice Mansion was willing to train forgers and set up a special department. Hai Xian Bing had foresight. Suemo suddenly realized that maybe Northern Plains Ice Mansion could possibly become Mo Cloud C's enemy. His mind moved, and an expression of interest rose on his face. "Oh, a forging department, then let's go see." Seeing Suemo interested, Lan Bing became joyous. Forging a Shin device was far from being as profitable as recruiting a forging grandmaster. Lan Bing decided that no matter what, she had to keep this forging grandmaster at the Northern Plains Ice Mansion. "That's great. If the Lord knows that Elder is about to come to our mansion, she would be overjoyed," Lan Bing said happily. Suemo glanced at Old Man Wu at the side and suddenly asked, "Old Wu, how many people are in the Wu family?" "Darren, 270, Old Man hurriedly answered. "Then have them pack up and accompany me," Suemo said. "Yes." Old Man Wu became alert. He had been worried that if the clan stayed in Wugu City, the Een Tomb Guard would come find them for revenge. Suemo then said to Lan Bing, "I will not dance around the matter of the Black Nether Mine. I want to sell it to the Northern Plains Ice Mansion." "No problem." Lan Bing did not hesitate before accepting. "We are willing to purchase it at 30% above market price. Elder, what do you think?" "All right." Suemo nodded. "Elder, do you want nether cash or materials?" Lan Bing then asked. "Materials," Suemo said. Lan Bing was not surprised by this answer. The obsession forgers had with materials was something hard for others to understand. "Darren, what about Tuoba Yu and the others?" Old Man Wu asked respectfully. Suemo sank into thought. That group of people was a bother. Lan Bing saw this and said, "If Elder feels that it is not easy to take care of, how about handing them over to our forces?" Suemo felt that this suggestion was good and agreed. After hearing that Suemo was willing to travel to the Northern Plains Ice Mansion, the Northern Plains Ice Mansion immediately sent experts traveling day and night to come and escort Suemo's group. The number of guards accompanying them increased greatly. The troop was an enormous one with the Wu clan and the captured Een Tomb guards. With the old and infirm of the Wu clan, the troop did not move quickly. Suemo was not in a hurry. He stayed in the chariot every day, and absorbed all kinds of powers along the way to repair his body. Suemo had almost absorbed all the powers near Wuxia City. If he continued to take from them, the Shin formations would start to absorb the vitality of those living near Wuxia City. At that time, Wuxia City would become a city of death. On the way, as he continued to absorb power from the surroundings and the 3 pieces of nether ghostine heavy wood, Suemo's body recovered significantly. He had absorbed 2 of the 3 nether ghostine heavy wood. That could make up for 2 months of effort. 36 months, that was 36 levels. Suemo had repaired 4 levels and he had 1 pieces of nether ghostine heavy wood left. Adding on what he absorbed on the trip, when he arrived at the Northern Plains Ice Mansion, he would be able to reach level 6. Suemo was satisfied with this progress. In the remaining time on the road, he taught the Wu clan youths how to cultivate and battle formations. The Wu clan did not have any experts. If they wanted to protect themselves at this time, they could only rely on battle formations. However, what Suemo taught them were not the battle formations that battalions used but what guards would frequently use. Other than this, he also forged Shin equipment for them. Each Wu clan youth had a Shin equipment. They were completely attired and the Northern Plains Ice Manian guards accompanying them were extremely jealous. "Take a look," Lan Bing said in a low voice to an armored female next to her and then handed over a piece of Shin equipment. This female dressed in blue ice armor had a beautiful appearance but her expression was icy and unapproachable. She sat on the snowy white Northern Plains snow horse, her body upright and unmoving. She held a large blade that was twice the height of a person in her hand. The blade curved in a crescent and the long handle was covered in blue swirling patterns. She was one of the 6 generals of Northern Plains Ice Palace, Zhu Nanyu. She had just returned from the front lines and was immediately sent by Hai Xian Bing to protect Suemo's group. Her guards were all females, each of them with solemn expressions. They didn't make any sounds as they marched. Zhu Nanyu and Lan Bing had a close relationship. She carefully looked at the Shin equipment in her hand and her expression became serious. She looked closely, turning it over and over. She looked for a long time before lifting her head. "How is it?" Lan Bing hurriedly asked. "If I had such Shin equipment, my strength will increase by 2/10." Zhu Nanyu's tone was certain. Lan Bing knew that Zhu Nanyu was a reliable and conservative person. She would not exaggerate. If she said it could increase her strength by 2/10, it would not be less than 2/10 and was likely more effective. "Look at this." Lan Bing handed over another piece of Shin equipment. It was the Shin equipment of the Wu clan. She had used many methods in order to get this Shin equipment. Chapter 861 In Tomb Ghost Lord. This Shin equipment was a faded gray and nondescript. Yet when she held it, Zhu Nanyu could not keep her calm. Her eyes widened and she said in disbelief, "This Shin equipment is another system." The 2 Shin equipment were of completely different styles and systems. Any forger who was able to forge in 2 completely different styles of Shin equipment would have great skill. Not just so. I saw those Wu clan members cultivating. This Shin equipment was designed for them. Lan Bing's expression was excited. If a forger like this will work for the Northern Plains Ice Mansion, who can stop us? Zhu Nanyu's beautiful pupils suddenly lit up like an layer of icy flame. Lan Bing's words struck at her heart. The difference between the 4 nether lords was very slim. If they could get such a grandmaster forger, then Northern Plains Ice Mansion would immediately leap ahead of the others. Suddenly, faint rumblings sounded in the sky as though thunder was roiling in the thick clouds. "Darren!" Elder's chariot charged into the clouds, the subordinate urgently said. The 2 paused and couldn't resist but raised their heads to look at the thick clouds. "Not good." Zhu Nanyu's expression changed slightly. The thick clouds were a good spot for an ambush. Hai Xian Bing had sent her just to guard against the retribution of the Yin Tomb guards. At this time, the sound of the thunder suddenly rose abruptly. Zhu Nanyu, Lan Bing and the others saw a soul-shaking sight. The thick and endless clouds seemed to suddenly boil. Silver lightning of various sizes streaked through the clouds. The tiny bots of lightning gathered and formed into thick bolts of lightning, and the thick bolts of lightning formed into even brighter lightning. The wild presence of the lightning and thunder could be clearly felt even from the ground. That was a power that was able to tear and destroy everything. Suddenly, the lightning in the clouds suddenly started to contract back towards the center of the clouds. There seemed to be something within the clouds that was absorbing this lightning. In reality, when Zuomo saw such thick clouds, he was unable to stop himself. The thicker the clouds, the more lightning energy it held. Even Zuomo felt such thick clouds were rare. This was a good chance to replenish his body, and Zuomo naturally would not pass it by. He did not hesitate to drive the sun chariot into the cloud layer. The Shin formations on the chariot suddenly lit up. Zuomo seemed to have thrown a spark into dry tinder, and the abundant lightning energy was ignited. Lightning of astounding numbers were created in the clouds. Boom boom boom. The sound of the thunder echoed in the clouds. Zuomo only saw countless silver snakes fly towards him from all directions to crash onto the chariot. The abundant lightning energy was turned by the Shin formations into Shin power, and the Shin power flowed into his body and the 5 coffins. Zuomo immediately sat down with his legs crossed. He focused on guiding the Shin power into his body. Once the Shin power entered Zuomo's body, it was like water draining into dry sand. The Shin power sank into his parched flesh and blood. As Zuomo breathed, the brimming Shin power in the Shin formations was almost immediately sucked dry. The absorption force of the Shin formation increased greatly. Even lightning in the distance was attracted. The thick lightning bolts hit the chariot like sharp and blinding silver swords. The chariot was surrounded by an astounding amount of lightning and appeared like a silver hedgehog. With the chariot as the center, the black clouds were collapsing at an astounding rate. Plat plat. Bean-sized droplets of rain smashed down from the sky. The world was immediately filled with moisture and mist. Zhu Nanyu and Lan Bing gaped as they watched the clouds recede like an avalanche from the sky. And that chariot that flashed with lightning like a hedgehog. Zuomo hadn't expected to make such a big disturbance this time. The Shin power that came from the Shin formations were more than usual. Soon, all of the clouds turned into rain. When the last bit of lightning energy was sucked into the chariot, the sky was as clear and the sunlight was bright. Zuomo's mind suddenly shifted. He turned and looked into the distance. There was someone peeking in from far away. This person was very far away. Zuomo could not see their figure but could feel their existence. He moved his gaze away and controlled the chariot to fly towards the ground. When the chariot that was shrouded in lightning landed on the ground, the lightning was completely absorbed and the illusion on the chariot broke, showing its original appearance. Hiss. Inhaled sounded. Lan Bing gaped at this grand chariot. She was Hai Xian Bing's right and left hand. She had seen luxury in food and dress from childhood but never seen such a grand chariot before. Oh, grandness was not enough to describe this chariot. The layers of scripts, like seal scripts and MO matrices. She didn't recognize any of them. But that was not important. These complex patterns were filled with beauty. She didn't know what the chariot was made from. There wasn't any mark of the crafting process on the chariot. The golden flames were domineering and masculine as they flew with the wheels. Lan Bing did not recognize seal formations or did not know forging methods, but she recognized the gems. The chariot was inlaid all over with jewels. Those clear and flawless gems flashed with enchanting ripples. If she took these gems, they were enough to buy a jie. Zhu Nanyu was also shocked. However, it was not due to the grandness of the chariot, but the strong vibrations it gave off. The lightning had shattered Zhuomo's disguise on the chariot and showed its true appearance. A domineering and heated presence like that of fire which one could not look directly at. Lan Bing and Zhu Nanyu were silent. Lan Bing found that the situation was not as simple as she had imagined. In her transaction with Zhuo, she had this feeling that Zhuo was very poor. If she gave a good price, it was almost certain to succeed. Yet when this chariot showed its true appearance, she found that she was wrong, and terribly wrong. The other was not poor. It was the opposite. He was overflowing with wealth. The value of this chariot alone was hard to estimate. She suddenly had no confidence in recruiting this white-haired elder. Zhu Nanyu's expression was slightly ugly. She said in a low voice, "We did not bring enough people." Ah! Lan Bing stilled, but then she understood Zhu Nanyu's meaning. Her expression changed dramatically. "You mean he can forge Shen devices?" Zhu Nanyu's tone was certain. Lan Bing's expression changed again and again. She had been doubting all this time if the white-haired elder could forge a Shen device or not. She had decided that their previous welcome had been enough to show the importance they placed on this. Yet when she found that the white-haired elder had the ability to forge Shen devices, their escort was too small. Then what to do now? Lan Bing hurriedly asked. "Ask for help," Zhu Nanyu said. Far away from Zhuomo's group, several figures appeared. The one at the front was dressed in black robes. His face was stiff like that of a zombie. "Such profit. We did not waste our effort," a person covered in yin energy spoke. His voice was dark and malicious, which caused people to feel a cold wave up their backs. As expected, this person can forge Shen devices. A completely white skeleton suddenly spoke, the two balls of ghost fire flickering in the two empty eye sockets. The black-robed zombie said woodenly, "Let's go." The six figures disappeared in the air like smoke. Inside the chariot, Zhuo felt something and raised his head. Almost at the same time, Zhu Nanyu's shout came from outside. "Enemy attack! Formations!" They came so quickly. Zhuo was startled. He had just felt someone observing from far away and hadn't expected them to come so quickly and so openly. This meant that the arrivals had absolute confidence in their strength. He stepped out of the chariot and coincidentally saw six figures slowly appear out of mist. Qing Xiao stood with a wary expression next to Zhuo. His expression was solemn. He could feel the incomers were of great power. People like Tuobayu could not compare to this. When Zhu Nanyu saw these six figures, her pupils suddenly contracted, "Yin Tomb Ghost Lords." Hearing these four words, Lan Bing's face turned white and the guards in their formation shifted. "Little child has good eyes," the black-robed zombie slowly spoke. His voice was dry and dissonant like two plants of wood rubbing together. Zhu Nanyu's gaze moved around and her heart continued to sink. That completely snowy white skeleton was Gu Wuxuang, one of the most famed experts of the Yin Tomb guards. That figure completely covered in black smoke was called He Wu and of unfathomable power. That person covered completely in cloth and gave off great death energy which caused Zhu Nanyu to feel waves of nausea should be Buru Mian. The one completely green was Si Du, the one dressed in red and wore a cloak and silk veil was Mo Ru. All 5 Yin Tomb ghosts were present. The Yin Tomb 5 ghosts were the 5 strongest members of the Yin Tomb guards. Each of them could rival Zhu Nanyu. The Northern Plains Ice Mansion had had friction with the Yin Tomb guards frequently in the past, but they had never had a conflict of this level. Zhuo was also surprised as well. The Yin Tomb guards were much stronger than he had expected. These 6 people were stronger than even his group back in the day. Each of these 6 were not weaker than Qing Xiao. Zhuo could feel that black-robed zombie was not far from reaching god level. Zhuemo did not worry about his own safety but only worried about the 5 coffins on the chariot being disturbed. Zhu Nanyu was shocked but she forced herself to remain calm on the surface. She said gravely, "Ghost Lord, why are you blocking my path? This one, under the orders of the Mansion Lord, is protecting an honored guest of the Northern Plains Ice Mansion." The black-robed zombie ignored her. His gaze swept across the group and then landed on Zhuemo. He bowed slightly. "I apologize to Grandmaster on behalf of Tuobayu and the others." Zhuemo glanced at the other and said, "Just a minor matter, you are too polite. I heard that Sir has been searching for the nether ghostine heavy wood." The black-robed zombie's voice was still as dissonant and displeasing to hear. "These 5 pieces of nether ghostine heavy wood represent our sincere apology. Also, I want to request Grandmaster to forge Shin devices for us. Our offer will not be any lower than the Northern Plains Ice Mansion." Zhu Nanyu and Lan Bing's faces were bloodless. "I hear that Grandmaster is also interested in corpse forging. The death energy pools of our Yin Tomb guards are the best." When He Wu opened his mouth, the temperature of the surroundings dropped greatly and became filled with Yin energy. Death energy pool. Zhuemo's heart jumped. Chapter 862, Base Shin Power. In terms of accumulated wealth, the Yin Tomb guards could not compete with the other factions, but when it came to death energy and nether materials none were greater than the Yin Tomb guards. He Wu's dark voice was filled with temptation. "Elder." Lan Bing couldn't help but call. At this time, an extremely dark and cold presence rolled over her and she found to her shock that she was unable to speak. Zhuemo did not pay attention to Lan Bing. He did not care who he did business with. What he cared about was healing his body as quickly as possible and awakening everyone. The death energy pools were very attractive to Zhuemo. 50 high-quality pieces of nether ghostine heavy wood. Zhuemo did not hesitate and said directly, "Tomb ghost bone crystal, rotten life wood, yellow springs lotus, they all work but they have to be of similarly high level." The black-robed zombie said, "All right." Lan Bing had an expression of anger. Her eyes were wide and her face flushed red as she stared at Zhuemo but she could not make a sound. Zhuemo did not spare her any attention. He had no relationship to the Northern Plains Ice Mansion, the two were just doing business. Zhuemo did not care who he did business with. What he cared about was repairing his body. In comparison, Zhu Nanyu was much calmer. Her dispiritedness had been swept away and she recovered her calm. This girl was pretty good. A bit like Tang Fei. Tang Fei was also a person that did not admit defeat like this. When he thought of this, Zhuemo couldn't help but wander into his thoughts. He wondered how Mo Cloud Sea was. The nether realm was closed down tightly and there was not much information on the outside world. Suddenly, Gu Wushuang asked, "Is Grandmaster willing to sell this chariot?" Zhuemo shook his head. "Apologies, not for sale." It did not take much effort to forge this chariot, but he did not want any of the Shin formations on the chariot to leak out. Gu Wushuang laughed. It was the first time Zhuemo saw a skeleton laughing eerily in front of him. Zhuemo did not want to waste time. "Since the negotiation has concluded, let's go." He then said to Old Man Wu. "Have everyone prepare." Old Man Wu seemed to wake up from a dream and hurriedly nodded. "Yes." He went to organize the group as he lamented inside, the world changed too quickly. Just now, they had been fighting to the death to the Yin Tomb guards and now they were working together. Lan Bing opened her mouth and was about to speak when Zhu Nanyu pulled her and indicated for her not to. In front of absolute power, speech was never as effective as fists. Unless the Nether Lord arrived with a group of experts at this time, anything said was meaningless. The black-robed zombie admired Zhuemo's briskness. He said expressionlessly, "Good. Boss, should we kill them?" Buru Mia's voice came from behind the thick cloth wrappings in an unusually muffled manner. Zhu Nanyu's eyes widened. She did not fall back. She gripped the large black in her hand like a panther about to pounce. Lan Bing also displayed great fighting spirit. The black-robed zombie said woodenly, "Let's go." Then the group was covered in smoke. When the smoke cleared, the Yin Tomb guards and Zhuo Mo's group had disappeared. Zhuo Mo opened his eyes. He finally had absorbed all of the nether ghost Yin heavy wood he had. His body had been repaired to the 11th level, and was almost 1/3 recovered. Zhuo Mo was content with this level of progress. Rising, he looked at the dark sky outside. The sun would never appear in the sky above the 10,000 tombs of the netherworld. This place was filled with death energy and there was not one hint of green to be seen. There were bleached bones everywhere, the rivers were as black as ink. There were countless tombs which covered every visible mountain. Qing Shao did not like this place. He liked places that were sunny and bright. The Wu clan members did not like this place. The nether energy here was filled with the flavor of death. Zhuo Mo liked this place a lot because he found that the death energy here was very useful to Wei Sheng and the others. He walked out of the room. Qing Shao was teaching the Wu clan members how to cultivate. The Yin Tomb guards were very polite towards them and fulfilled all their needs. The Yin Tomb guards, on average, had better temperaments than Tuobayu and this made everyone feel much better. Zhuo Mo did not disturb Qing Shao. He walked towards the neighboring yard along the corridor. In the yard, 5 little pools roiled with grey mist. These were the death energy pools. The 5 coffins were laid out in the death energy pool. It was possible to see grey mist burrow into the coffins at a visible rate. These 5 coffins were not ordinary. Zhuo Mo had made them of a wondrous tree that grew in the eye of Shen Spring he had stumbled upon in the endless void. Zhuo Mo had never seen something with so much vitality. When he saw it, he immediately decided to turn it into coffins. The benefits of everyone being nourished by such strong vitality did not need to be stated. But in the process of making the coffins, Zhuo Mo encountered great difficulties. This tree was unusually hard and it was also difficult to cut. Another unexpected quality was that its regeneration ability was unimaginable. All the wounds on the tree trunk would heal in almost an instant. While cutting the tree and before he managed to withdraw his blade, a flying sword forged from flowing gold sand had been sucked in by the tree. Zhuo Mo tried all kinds of methods. In the end, he used flame knives formed from sunshine fire to slowly carve away. The process had been as slow as a snail. To make these 5 coffins, Zhuo Mo had spent a whole year. With Zhuo Mo's present skill, he wouldn't need 1 year to even forge a Shin device. The strength of the wood could be seen from this. The Shin tree had vitality so thick it almost crystallized. Through the Shin formations, it constantly nourished the bodies of eldest Shixiang, Agui, and the others. Everyone's recovery relied on the Shen wood coffins. When Zhuo Mo heard the Yin Tomb Ghost Lord speak of the death energy pools, his attention was attracted. The nether ghost Yin heavy wood had given him inspiration. The vitality formed from thick death energy was pure. The Yin Tomb Ghost Lord and the others knew Zhuo Mo's thoughts so they specifically arranged for a yard with death energy pools. There were tens of thousands of years of tombs accumulated under the 10,000 tombs of the underworld. The legend said that this place had been an enormous mass grave in the ancient era. The layers of tombs caused the death energy in the ground to be so abundant. Some of the death energy would erupt from the ground and formed earth energy pools. For MO like those that forged corpses, the death energy pools were the best places. They could endlessly absorb death energy and turn it into Shin power. The Shin power that the Yin Tomb guards cultivated were unlike the others' factions. Their Shin power was filled with great amounts of nether Shin power and was astoundingly destructive. Zhuo Mo had originally wanted to see if he could create vitality out of death energy. The nether decay reincarnation lotus that Zhuo Mo had used on Agui had been like that. Yet what he hadn't expected was that the Shenwood coffins could directly absorb death energy. Thesis astonished Suemo. The Shenwood coffins constantly absorbed death energy. After the death energy was absorbed, it would merge with the vitality of the Shenwood and form a strange new power. The merging of life and death naturally matched yet was so unpredictable. Suemo continued to study and quickly found that the power that had formed was slightly like Shen power, but it did not have clear leanings of any attribute. Suemo called it base Shen power. It was the first time Suemo encountered Shen power that did not have a type. Usually, Shen power that was cultivated would have a type. For example, the Sun Shen power he cultivated was the classic fire-type Shen power. The base Shen power did not have any type, but it was easily absorbed. Even though eldest Shixiang and the others had almost no ability left in their bodies, the base Shen power could easily meld into their bodies. When the base Shen power melded into the bodies of eldest Shixiang and the others, it was of great help to their recovery. Suemo was joyfully surprised by this accidental discovery. Even the dark and cloudy 10,000 tombs of the netherworld became much better in his eyes. His body was gradually recovering. As long as there were enough nether ghostine heavy wood, he could quickly repair his body. Once recovered, restoring his Shen power was just a matter of time. But Suemo could not resolve the problem afflicting eldest Shixiang and the others from the root. He only saw hope when he saw the perfect merging of the death energy pool and the Shenwood coffin, which lead to the wondrous effects of the base Shen power. After persisting for 10 years, Suemo's excitement could be imagined when he saw the light of hope. Everyone, wake up as soon as possible. Suemo silently thought as he carefully inspected every person and then the surrounding Jinji before he left. He could not delay the issue of Shen devices any longer. Even Suemo felt that the Yin Tomb Ghost Lord had been very good to them. At least, he had enough patience. From this, it could be seen that the Yin Tomb Ghost Lord had unusual breadth of mind. Unlike the harmony inside the yard, the outside of the yard was heavily guarded. There was a station every 5 paces and a scout every 10. There were troops patrolling everywhere. Someone who was ignorant would think that this was a military base. When Suemo walked out of the yard, the guard outside immediately came over. "Grandmaster," Suemo said politely, "take me to see the Ghost Lord." The guard hurriedly said, "Yes." Soon, a carriage pulled by 4 nightmare fire bone horses appeared in front of Suemo. Suemo did not refuse and made his way onto the carriage. In the yard, Old Man Wu said urgently to Qing Shao, "It is okay for Darren to go out alone." Qing Shao glanced at Old Man Wu and smiled. "What is wrong?" "Safety." Old Man Wu had an expression of urgency. Qing Shao patted Old Man Wu. "Do you think that Big Brother doesn't have the ability to protect himself?" Old Man Wu stilled. Qing Shao waved his hand. "Do not worry for Big Brother. Someone that can defeat Big Brother, hasn't been born yet." His confidence was clear from his tone. Old Man Wu still had a doubtful expression, but he accepted this. If Qing Shao was not usually reliable, he would have cursed back in response. Qing Shao scratched his head and said to himself, "Big Brother says that my teaching is not effective. Where is it not effective?" Old Man Wu was drawn out of his thoughts, attacked by Qing Shao's words. "Darren says that a Shao's teachings are not effective." "No. The clan members have improved so much, it is all a Shao's work." Old Man Wu's words were not flattery. Even the Wu clan members and the servants nodded in agreement. They knew just how great their improvement in this span of time had been. "You do not understand," Qing Shao said without even raising his head. "If Big Brother says that it is not effective, then it is not effective. It probably is that these people do not have enough comprehension abilities, and Darren is not satisfied." Old Man Wu said. Qing Shao's eyes lit up. "Comprehension. Yes. Since I don't know how to teach, then you can comprehend on your own." "Ha. Just like me. Old man Wu thought that Qin Shao was going to give up on them and was going to speak to stop him. Qin Shao turned around with a humorous expression. Starting from today, anyone that escapes from my hands is qualified. Come, all of you together. Everyone gaped. Chapter 863, Preparations. This really was a land of death. Suemo couldn't help but lament as he looked at the scenery outside. The gray mountain peaks in the distance appeared endless. Many of the peaks were shrouded in gray mist. Here the world was gray, black, and white. There were no other colors. Seeing Suemo's interest in the distant mountains, the guard spoke up to introduce, that is Billion Bone Peaks. Billion Bone Peaks. Suemo was frightened by this name. Yes, that mountain is made entirely of bone, bones everywhere, innumerable. Sometimes, when it rains, the bones will flow down like water. Many of the bones here were washed over from there. The guard was like a tour guide. Where did so many bones come from? Suemo was extremely interested. No one knows. The guard shook his head. Before, many people were interested in Billion Bone Peak, but after searching for a long time, they did not find anything. Some people dug into Billion Bone Peak to seek the source, but they never came out alive. There are many bones there. Some people are interested in bone material, so they like to go there to harvest and gather. Gu Wushuang Darren lives there. Gu Wushuang, that skeleton that could talk. Suemo's mind suddenly shifted. Where are the best death energy pools? The best death energy pools. The guard thought about it. I'm not clear about that. But there is the Sea of 10,000 boiling pools. If Grandmaster is interested, you should take a look. Sea of 10,000 boiling pools. Suemo noted that down. This guard was skilled at talking and discussed many unique locations of the 10,000 tombs of the netherworld. It really broadens Suemo's view. The 10,000 tombs of the netherworld were unique even in the nether realm. There was a reason why the Een tomb guards were the only ones here. Normal MO could not tolerate such thick death energy. If one did not cultivate the Een tomb guard's unique scripture, they would be corroded by the death energy here and die. Suemo could hear from his tone that this guard was reverent of and faithfully loyal to the Een tomb ghost lord. Suemo felt that the way the outside world saw the Een tomb guards were not like what he saw. Soon, they reached the residence of the ghost lord. The Een tomb ghost lord's residence was simple. If he had not been told, he would not know that one of the top people in the nether realm was living in a very ordinary building. There were no guards outside the residence. The guard came to the door and said respectfully, "Ghost Lord, Grandmaster is here. Come in." The Ghost Lord's dissonant voice came from behind the door. The door opened on its own. Suemo walked in. The yard was also ordinary and did not have any decorations. The Ghost Lord was sitting at the center of the yard. He slowly stood up and nodded to Suemo. That could be considered a greeting. "Grandmaster has come, do you have any thoughts about the Shin device?" The Ghost Lord was expressionless. 2 chairs and a table of bone rose from the ground. The Ghost Lord sat in one of the bone chairs and gestured to invite Suemo to sit down. After Suemo sat down, 2 cups of bone appeared on the table. The cups were filled with a bloody red liquid. "Please." The Ghost Lord picked up a cup and drained it. Suemo curiously picked up the bone cup. He smelled it. There was no strong bloody tang he had expected, but an unique fragrance. The Ghost Lord saw Suemo's action and gave off dissonant chuckles. "This is one of the products of the 10,000 tombs of the underworld, vermilion red marrow. It looks like blood, but it is actually the milk of a stone." Suemo drained it. When it entered his throat, he felt extremely refreshed all the way to his heart. Good stuff. Suemo became alert. A presence slowly revolved around his flesh and blood in a comfortable manner. The Ghost Lord seemed to be in a good mood. He laughed and said, "Grandmaster likes this. I have a batch here, and will give it to Grandmaster." "Many thanks." Suemo did not refuse. After savoring the taste, he spoke, "I have come this time for the matter of the Shin device." "Please speak," the Ghost Lord said. "The forging of a Shin device is both easy and hard. If the materials are good and the effort is there, that's about all you need. Good materials are top materials. Those that can tolerate Shin power, especially strong Shin power, they will not be low in grade. Effort, that is the engraving of Shin glyphs and seals formations, have to be paired appropriately so that they can express the attributes of the materials and benefit the user," Suemo said casually. "Good explanation." The Ghost Lord nodded. "Then what kind of materials does Grandmaster need?" "I'm not familiar with nether materials," Suemo said after a moment. "What kind of materials can Ghost Lord not destroy with your Shin power?" The Ghost Lord stilled. He tilted his head to think and said, "Grandmaster, please wait." Then he disappeared. Suemo was not in a panic when the other did not appear for a long time. The Ghost Master appeared an hour later. Clack clack clack, some materials fell to the ground. The Ghost Lord said, "My Shin power cannot destroy these materials." Suemo first picked up a bone. This looked to be the femur of a human, but it was in unique dark gold as though it was carved from metal. When it entered his hand, Suemo suddenly felt a feeling of familiarity. Faint warmth came from the bone. "Could you give this bone to me? I can trade for this with other things," Suemo lifted his head and said. The Ghost Lord was slightly surprised when he heard this. But he shook his head and said, "There is no need to trade, I will give it to Grandmaster." Suemo changed expression. He didn't believe the Ghost Master could not see the extraordinary nature of this bone. He hadn't expected the other to be so generous to give it to him. Suemo smiled. "Then I will accept it." He had no more intentions of skimping. He decided to forge a good Shin device for the Ghost Lord. Suemo had a lot of materials to work with as he had the assets. He put the dark gold bone into his ring. Suemo started to inspect the other materials. A pale skull. The empty eye sockets seemed bottomless. When Suemo looked, he felt his body being pulled in. He was alarmed and he immediately woke up. He stood motionlessly where he was. This skull was slightly strange. The two balls of mist in the empty eye sockets were deep and serene. Without even looking, Suemo knew that this was a top-tier material. Even with his god-level cultivation, he had been pulled in. The illusory ability of the skull was incomprehensible. Suemo put down the skull and reached his hand to another material. This was a black stone. It looked ordinary, but when Suemo held it, he was not able to move it. He tried again. The stone still remained motionless. "This rock is 30,000 caddies heavy. I accidentally obtained it," the Ghost Lord said woodenly. Suemo was slightly shocked. This stone the size of his hand was 30,000 caddies heavy. No wonder he could not pick it up. While Suemo's cultivation was god-level, his body had not recovered and he could not lift such a heavy stone. The third material was a grey piece of wood. The wood was covered in burnt marks. The wood was extremely light and seemed like nothing when held in his hands. What surprised Suemo the most was that this stone had a clear wasteland presence. Suemo had ancient records and he guessed that this was the grey feather wood, one of the Shin woods of the world. The Ghost Lord Shin power naturally would not be able to destroy it. Suemo passed the grey feather wood to the Ghost Lord and said, "Ghost Lord, please channel Shin power." The Ghost Lord did not waste words. He picked up the grey feather wood and channeled Shin power. A dark, cold and vicious presence immediately covered the yard. Suemo's expression was calm and unaffected as he quickly analyzed in his mind. Moments later, he nodded and said, "That's good." The Ghost Lord would never think that in such a short span of time, Zuo had completely analyzed his Shen power. Zuomo's god-level cultivation caused his ability to analyze to reach a terrifying level. While the Ghost Lord had just demonstrated his Shen power, it was more than enough for Zuo. "This stone is not suited for you. The gray feather wood and this skull can be used. But other materials are also needed," Zuo said in a professional tone of voice. He was not tricking the other. In terms of forging Shen devices, there was no one more professional than him. Gray feather wood? The Ghost Lord raised the gray piece of wood in his hand. "Yes," Zuo introduced, "this is a very rare kind of Shen wood. It is as light as a feather. The ancient tribes frequently used them to make Shen arrows. It is rare to see such a big piece of gray feather wood. Grandmaster is knowledgeable." The Ghost Lord continued to speak in his dissonant voice. "What other materials are needed? Grandmaster can make a list." Zuo shook his head. "I'm not familiar with nether materials. It would be better if you have someone take me to the storehouses. After I examine them, I will know if they can be used or not." "All right." The Ghost Master treasured words like gold. The guard that had guided Zuo here was summoned and he stood solemnly next to the Ghost Lord. "Take Grandmaster to the material storehouses. Do whatever he tells you," the Ghost Lord said. "Yes," the guard acknowledged. Zuo suddenly said, "I want to go see the sea of 10,000 boiling pools, and pick some good death energy pools." The Ghost Lord nodded. "All right." Turning his face, he said to the guard, "You will be in charge of this as well." "Yes," the guard hurriedly responded. "This is the storehouse." The guards looked tiny as he stood in front of the mountains of materials. "What is in this storehouse are materials that are pretty good." The manager of the storehouse stood respectfully by the side. The guard mimicked the tone of the Ghost Lord as he ordered the manage, "Grandmaster is picking materials here. Do whatever he tells you." "Yes," the manager hurriedly said, "this lowly one will do whatever Grandmaster says." Zuo saw this and couldn't help but grin. There were tens of thousands of materials in the storehouse, piled up in mountains one after another. Zuo seemed to only stroll past these little mountains. Occasionally, one or two materials would float out of the little mountains and float behind Zuo. In about 2 hours, Zuo had walked through the entire storehouse. There were hundreds of kinds of materials floating behind him. He stopped and called the storehouse manager. "Come over here and identify these materials." The storehouse manager was extremely familiar with the materials. He quickly identified all the materials that Zuo had picked. Zuo then made a list noting down the materials he wanted. When Zuo identified one, the storehouse manager would nod. Yet when Zuo came to the final material, the storehouse manager's expression became conflicted. Noticing the other's expression, Zuo asked, "Not enough?" "This one does not dare to lie to Darren, there is not enough in stock." "This is very valuable, and we only won 1/10 of the amount," the storehouse manager sobbed. The guard's face darkened. He went over to look. When he saw the words, "crystal bone," he didn't speak. When he saw the number behind it, he continued to be silent. Zuo was slightly puzzled. He beckoned with his hand and a bone flew in front of him. "If you forge this a bit, isn't this crystal bone?" The guard and the storehouse manager seemed to be struck by lightning as they were stunned where they stood. Chapter 864, Refining the Shen Bone. The storehouse manager stammered out, this, can be forged into crystal bone." "Yes." Zuo saw the expressions of the two and knew that they definitely did not know of this. He asked, "What is this called?" "White bone," the storehouse manager hurriedly replied. His eyes were locked onto Zuo. "All right, white bone, Mo responded and then patiently explained, this white bone is not very different from crystal bone. If one refines it, white bone can be refined into crystal bone. How do you refine it? When the storehouse manager said this, he recognized it was appropriate. He said uncertainty, this lowly one had overstepped. Mo did not care. For him, concealing something like this was of no meaning. The Ghost Lord was good to him and Mo was willing to teach to pay him back. First use fire to refine the impurities, and then put it into the death energy pools for about 3 days, that should do it, Mo said. So simple, the storehouse manager unconsciously asked. The guard's eyes glared. You dare to doubt Grandmaster? The storehouse manager's head shrank back in fright. Mo smiled, unconcerned. Simple. Not so simple, just refining away the impurities is not easy. The more the impurities are forged away, the better the quality of the crystal bones. Then Mo said to the storehouse manager, all right, I've told you how to forge the crystal bone, go prepare these materials. Yes. The storehouse manager decided to believe it for now. He decided to immediately get people to test this out. In the 10,000 tombs of the underworld, the white bones were one of the most worthless materials as they were everywhere. The great majority of what washed down Billion Bone Peak was white bone. The crystal bones were at least 3 levels above white bone, and their production was rare. The difference in value between the two was in the thousands. If Grandmaster was right, then this definitely was a path to getting rich. If the storehouses were filled with crystal bones, the Ghost Lord Darren would reward him. The storehouse manager was filled with motivation. The guard suppressed his shock and asked Mo respectfully, Grandmaster, where do we go next? Should we go to the sea of 10,000 boiling pools? Mo thought for a moment. Let's return first. It is not early and we will find another time to go to the sea of 10,000 boiling pools. Yes. The guard hurriedly said. All of Mo's attention was focused on the bone in his ring. Having returned to his residence, Mo caressed the dark gold bone in his hand. This bone was of a fine quality and heavy as though it was made from metal. Patterns were packed onto the surface of the one and it seemed to have some beauty. If other people touched this bone, they would only feel coldness. Only when Mo touched it would a feeling of warmth come. Mo was sure now that this was a leg bone that a totem warrior of the Sun tribe had left. The totem warriors of that era were some of the strongest existences. The bones that they left behind were also one of the top materials. In the time where totem warriors had been strongest, almost every totem warrior had been god level. Their bodies were at the peak of what could be reached, their blood, bones, and sinew all reaching a shocking level. Mo thought of Land's black jade bones that were refined to an almost perfect level. The packed patterns on the bone was the Sun Shin glyph. It could be seen from how the other had refined the Sun Shin glyph onto the bone how powerful this Sun tribe totem warrior had been. Even if Mo recovered to his strongest state, he could not reach such a level. That era was one that people yearned for. Mo lamented. After tens of thousands of years, they finally returned to the era of Shin power, but there was still a great distance between them and the peak of the ancient era. Shaking his head, Mo threw his stray thoughts to the back of his mind and put all of his attention on this dark gold bone. For other people, this might just be a top-tier material, but him, it wasn't just that. A thread of Sun Shin fire wrapped around the dark gold femur. Mo's expression was serious. The Shin glyph on the surface of the dark gold femur gradually became brighter. The bone was like a heated metal that flashed with a scorching red light. Mo's hands moved and the Sun Shin fire moved as well. The Sun Shin glyph on the surface of the bone dimmed, but because the femur was bright, the Shin glyph contrasted even more. Mo's right hand rose slightly. Hiss. The Sun Shin glyph that covered the bone was lifted like it was a net that covered the bone. Mo's eyes became bright. His presence became even stronger. The Shen glyphs on the ground and walls released gentle light that hid Zhuomo's presence and stopped it from spreading outside. The presence of a god level would be too astounding. If it leaked, it would attract other people. The Sun Shen fire climbed onto the Shen glyph on the bone. Under Zhuomo's control, the Shen glyph slowly was pulled away from the bone. Soon, Zhuomo's forehead was covered in a fine layer of sweat. The bone covered in the fire trembled as though it was fighting to break free. It had experienced tens of thousands of years, and it had some intelligence. Yet it also had absorbed all kinds of power through these tens of thousands of years. The heterogeneous power was not of benefit to Zhuomo, and was damaging like a toxin. Zhuomo tried to use the Sun Shen fire to refine away these impurities, but the Sun Shen glyph layer on top of the bone blocked the Sun Shen fire. If he could not break through the Sun Shen glyph, he could not purify the bone. Suddenly, Zhuomo's body shook. Several small drops of blood shook and gathered into a bigger drop that flowed down Zhuomo's body. Soon, Zhuomo's body was soaked in sweat that ran down in streams. Zhuomo did not seem to feel it, his expression unusually focused. The Sun Shen glyph that covered the bone was slowly being lifted. Released of the restraints of the Shen glyph, the bone was even brighter. It started to melt. When the last bit of Shen glyph was pulled away from the bone immediately turned into a puddle of gold liquid. The Sun Shen glyph strangely did not disappear, but floated in front of Zhuomo like a spiderweb. Zhuomo's sweat flowed down his back. He had no attention to spare for wiping his sweat. The Sun Shen fire refined the puddle of gold liquid. Fortunately, his cultivation was steady. Zhuomo rejoiced. While his Shen power was lacking, there were benefits to his stable cultivation. For example, his control of the Sun Shen fire was much higher than those not in god level. The Sun Shen fire was like a part of his body, and could be used like his arm. It was even more nimble than his hands. The golden liquid grew smaller as he forged and refined. The impurities were out. Its presence quickly changed, from pressuring to gentle. Its presence started to weaken, but the feeling of purity increased. Zhuomo did not stop. The Sun Shen fire continued to burn. This refinement continued for 3 whole days. Only a drop of that ball of gold liquid was left. This droplet of golden liquid was clear and a faint gold without any impurity. Zhuomo finally had a satisfied expression. He opened his mouth and that clear golden drop of liquid flew into his mouth. When the golden liquid entered his mouth, his body couldn't help but shake. An indescribable pleasure filled his body. All of his exhaustion disappeared. The countless golden burning flows in Zhuomo's body were like sharks that smelt blood and furiously flew towards that droplet of golden liquid from all over Zhuomo's body. These tiny red burning flows were the after effects from the battle with the chief elder of Tianhuan. When Zhuomo had broken the sun crystal seed without any regard for the consequences, he had obtained great power, but the destructive ability of the burning sun flows were too strong. Pu Yao and Wei shattered Zhuomo's sea of consciousness, and the majority of the burning sun flows formed the Sun Shen tree. But Zhuomo's attempt to save the others used up almost all of the Sun Shen tree's power. The Sun Shen tree lost the ability to absorb and digest the burning sun flows. The remaining burning sun flows rampaged through Zhuomo's body and continued to destroy it. They were the true culprit for Zhuomo's terrible condition. There were not much of the burning sun flows left in Zhuomo's body now, as the majority had been used up, but because so much of his body had been used up, he had no ability to digest this. That unknown Sun Tribe totem warrior had been extremely powerful before death. Zhuomo refined this droplet of golden liquid from the femur. Pure essence and the unique sun presence it had was magnetically attractive to the burning sun flows. The streams of burning sun flow gathered from all directions and continued to flow into the golden liquid. The faint golden liquid quickly became covered in red threads. Soon, those red threads dissolved in the golden liquid. The faint gold liquid became a solid gold with a tinge of red. Having relieved himself of the continuous damage caused by burning sun flows, Zhuo Mo's entire body felt light. Relieved of a burden and relaxed. This red-tinged golden drop of liquid spun rapidly. A ball of flame rose from its surface and it was about to burrow into Zhuo Mo's flesh. Zhuo Mo's eyes lit up, and he opened his mouth to suck in. The sun-shin glyph that floated in front of him entered his mouth. The sun-shin glyph that entered his body flew towards the burning golden liquid. The flames on the surface of the golden liquid did not affect the shin glyph at all. The sun-shin glyph wrapped around the golden liquid. The flames on the surface of the golden liquid dimmed. A red-tinged golden bead floated inside Zhuo Mo's body. The golden bead was covered in complex patterns. Only at this time did Zhuo Mo completely relax. He had an expression of joy. Just as he had thought. Zhuo Mo was full of respect towards that unknown Sun tribe totem warrior. So powerful. While Zhuo Mo didn't have a large amount of burning sun flows left in his body, but the shin glyph from the femur bone was able to seal these burning sun flows. The power of this Sun totem warrior before death was terrifying. Zhuo Mo stood up. He felt as light as a feather. 10 years. 10 whole years. A feeling of lightness that had been gone for a long time made him feel so joyous he wanted to howl into the sky. Without the damage done by the burning sun flows and with the nourishment from the nether ghostine heavy wood, Zhuo Mo could repair his body and recover his shin power in an even shorter amount of time. There was nothing that could make him even more excited and happy. If his power was recovered, he would be able to return to Mo Cloud Sea, he would be able to awaken everyone, he would be able to save Pu Yao and Wei. He would succeed. Zhuo Mo balled his fists. Chapter 865, Ghost Fire Forging. When Zhuo Mo walked out of the room, Qin Shao's eyes lit up. In a flash he appeared in front of Zhuo Mo and asked concernedly in a low voice, "Big brother, your wounds are healed." Zhuo Mo smiled. "No, but the situation is slightly better." "Great." Qin Shao was happy. "This place is slightly depressing, but if it can make Big Brother's body better, it is a good place." Zhuo Mo patted Qin Shao's back. "It will be good soon." After talking with Qin Shao, Zhuo Mo came to the death energy pool. He inspected the changes of the Shenwood coffin. The 5 were in a slightly better state. However, Zhuo Mo's brow quickly furrowed. The death energy in the death energy pool was much fainter. It seemed that he really did have to go to the sea of 10,000 boiling pools and pick 5 high-quality death energy pools. He stood and walked towards the outside. "Grandmaster." The guard hurriedly bowed towards Zhuo Mo. "We are going to the sea of 10,000 boiling pools." "Yes." The guard summoned the bone carriage. On the carriage, Zhuo Mo asked casually, "How has the forging of the crystal bones been? Have you finished preparing?" The guard hesitated and then said, "It has not gone very well." "Oh, what problems occurred?" Zhuo Mo was slightly surprised. "This lowly one is not quite clear," the guard shook his head. Zhuo Mo thought and said, "Then let's first go to where they are forging the crystal bones." Zhuo Mo needed large amounts of crystal bones. If there were not enough crystal bones, it would be difficult to proceed with the following forging. Since he had agreed and had benefited so much from the Ghost Lord, Zhuo Mo did not want to skimp. "Yes." A thread of respect came into the guard's voice. He had followed the Ghost Lord for many years and had seen those so-called grandmasters. Regardless of their skill level, almost all of them had their noses in the sky and had proud expressions. Only this grandmaster had a good temper and was easygoing. The bone carriage turned and flew into another direction. The bone carriage moved quickly, the bone mountains flashed by. The smell of sulfur in the air increased. It was possible to see bright red lava slipping out through the valleys. Sparks flew and thick smoke rose into the air. Bright red flows of lava could be seen everywhere. It was possible to see white bones that bobbed and moved in the lava in a terrifying picture. Suemo marveled inwardly. It had to be said that the 10,000 tombs of the netherworld was an unique place. The guard saw Suemo seemed to be very interested and introduced the area. If we go forward, we will arrive at the fire cemetery. That is where we forge. The fire cemetery is abundant in earth fire and there are many that come here to forge. In the past, this place was sparsely populated, then Shin equipment came into style on the market. More and more people started to learn to forge Shin equipment and more people came to the fire cemetery. Oh, how is the skill level of the Yin tomb guards in forging Shin equipment? Suemo asked curiously. Not very good. The guard twisted his mouth. He clearly was not satisfied with the skill level of his group. It is terrible. Lacking compared to the 4 nether lords. The nether lords are worse than the Shouja realm. In the past, someone purchased a batch of Mo Cloud Shin equipment. That level of skill is amazing. It is a pity that the Mo Cloud Shin equipment does not match our Shin power. The effects are not good. Otherwise, we will just buy directly from them. Suemo was very happy when he heard praise for Mo Cloud C from other people. His mind shifted. Are you not able to communicate with Mo Cloud C? Why would they not sell Shin equipment? We had been planning to buy from them, but then something happened. The guard seemed to be wary of this question and did not discuss any further. Suemo was perceptive. It seemed as though the nether realm was not very calm either. Darren, the fire cemetery is up ahead, the guard pointed forward and said. The bone carriage rounded between 2 hills and the scenery opened in front of them, an extremely large basin surrounded by mountains. Countless flows of lava flowed down from the mountain peaks as they gave off thick plumes of smoke. Hundreds of streams of lava gathered at the base of the basin. Thick pillars of fire occasionally erupted out of the center of the basin. Watching from far away, countless pillars rose and fell in a spectacular scene. This is the fire cemetery. Even Suemo couldn't help but be stunned by such a great scene. Yes. Grandmaster, this is the fire cemetery. One of the best fire regions in the nether world. The guard's voice was filled with pride. The bone carriage flew swiftly downwards. There were people waiting on the ground already and they moved over when the bone carriage landed. They bowed and called Grandmaster. This is the steward of the fire cemetery, Lu Zhuang, the guard introduced. Suemo greeted Lu Zhuang who was overwhelmed. Lu Zhuang was of a simple appearance and he was very embarrassed. Grandmaster, please forgive us. Everyone tried to forge the white bones, but the best is only at this level. Lu Zhuang handed over a piece of bone. There were many ugly white marks on the transparent bone. Suemo frowned. This was caused by leaving too many impurities. Suemo identified the problem. He had based his predictions using the skill level of Golden Crow Camp. The forging skill level of these people were far below Golden Crow Camp. From this bone, it could be seen the so-called best were about the same skill level as the fringe apprentices of Golden Crow Camp. He needed a great amount of crystal bone. He could forge them, but he did not want to waste his time on the simple preparation work. He had thought that work like this could be done by other people. Forging like this that was simple and was needed in great amounts was best for less skilled forgers to forge. Who forged this piece? Suemo asked. Lu Zhuang hurriedly summoned the forger. It was a youth in his 20s. Lu Zhuang hurriedly said, Ming Hong is the best forger here, he is the most skilled. Give him a piece of white bone, he'll watch as he forges it, Suemo said. Ming Hong became alert. He had heard that a great grandmaster had come to the Ying Tomb guards this time. He hadn't expected the grandmaster to personally come to the fire cemetery and would personally teach him. He could not waste a chance like this. Ming Hong became as alert as possible as he started to forge the white bone. Suo Mo's mouth gaped at the following actions. Ming Hong was using the fire that erupted from the fire cemetery to forge. Suo Mo pointed at the focused Ming Hong and asked Lu Zhuang, "You all forge like this?" "Yes." Lu Zhuang had an expression of punishment. "Shouldn't it be so?" Suo Mo was completely speechless. He had been mentally prepared before that the Yin Tomb guards were not skilled, but he had not expected for their skill to be so low. "Don't you know that there are many impurities in these pillars of fire? If the flame itself is not pure, how can you forge?" Suo Mo shouted in a rarely stern tone. "Don't you have the Zaya scrolls? How can you not even know this basic knowledge?" Lu Zhuang had a grimace. "Grandmaster, please do not be angry. It is not that this lowly one does not know that forging needs flames, because we cultivate Nethershan power we cannot absorb earth fire." Without knowing it, there were more and more Mo gathered in the surroundings. They had heard that a grandmaster had arrived and had all ran over. Suo Mo stilled. He finally realized. The forging arts of the Xiuzhi had gone through tens of thousands of years of development. What flames could be used, which ones were not good, that must have been learned through the contributions of countless people. For the Mo, 10 years ago, they didn't need to know how to forge. They had refined their bodies as weapons, and only began forging as they entered the era of Shen power. Shen equipment was something unfamiliar to everyone, but to them even forging was unfamiliar. This fundamental knowledge needed to be accumulated through countless people. There were no shortcuts. The faces were bitter and dispirited. They had studied for so many years, but they still did not understand. The mysteries of the forging world were unreachable to them. Suo Mo sighed inside. He looked at these faces, and suddenly thought of himself back at Wukong Mountain. Nethershan power is not suited for absorbing earth fire. You have death energy within your Shen power, and that is even more unsuited for earth fire. However, other than earth fire, there are other types of fire. The reason that Xiuzhi mostly use earth fire is because, for them, earth fire is easy to absorb and control. Everyone listened carefully in fear of missing a word. But you are suited for Yin-type fires, like ghost fire, Suo Mo continued. How can ghost fire be used to forge? Someone shouted from among the crowd. They were familiar with ghost fire. The Shen power that many people cultivated carried small amounts of ghost fire. This, as the 10,000 tombs of the underworld, ghost fire and similar fires could be seen everywhere. Suo Mo smiled slightly. For the Xiuzhi, ghost fire is not a good fire to forge with. But for you, it is most fitting. Does anyone have ghost fire? A weak voice said, "Grandmaster, I do." Suo Mo followed the noise. It was Ming Hong who had just demonstrated for him. Suo Mo said gently, "Let me see." Ming Hong moved his hand, and a pale green ghost fire floated in his hand. Other powers are usually mixed in with ghost fire when used in attacks. However, in forging, you have to remember the most important quality about any flame is purity. The purer the flame, the more suited it is for forging. Suo Mo's voice was not loud, but it could be heard all over. This ghost fire's quality is not bad, but it has not been refined enough. It is easy to refine fire. Channel your Shen power. Suo Mo then said to Ming Hong. Try. Ming Hong hesitated. Hiss, the ghost fire was absorbed into his body. As the ghost fire circulated around his body, Ming Hong's face became a pale green. About an hour later, the green tinge on Ming Hong's face gradually faded. He summoned the flame. The ghost fire was slightly more green than previously. Alright, when you refine ghost fire it will be pure when it is colorless. Suo Mo suddenly threw a white bone to Ming Hong. Try forging this with the ghost fire. Ming Hong looked helplessly at Suo Mo. Suo Mo patiently taught, control the ghost fire to wrap around the white bone. Following the words, Ming Hong used the ghost fire to surround the white bone. Soon, the white bone was covered in a terrifying layer of green and a layer of sweat appeared on Ming Hong's forehead. Do not stop. Zhuemo shouted in a low voice, focus your mind, pay attention to controlling the fire to permeate into the interior of the bone. Ming Hong gritted his teeth and persisted. He forced himself to control the ghost fire. Moments later, he was soaked in sweat. But he persisted without a sound. The pale green bone started to change. It gradually became transparent. Zhuemo taught Ming Hong and everyone listening how to connect ghost fire and seal scripts, how to control the ghost fire more effectively. It's good. Ming Hong sat down on his behind on the ground, unable to move, but had an expression of undisguised joy on his face. A transparent and faintly green bone was in Zhuemo's hand. The green color is because the ghost fire is not pure enough, Zhuemo evaluated. The people who had been watching this scene became excited. So forging was actually like this. Zhuemo saw this and waved his hand. Those with ghost fire, start refining your ghost fire. Those that don't, go find ghost fire. Then he did not pay any more attention to the crowd. He said to the guard, let's go, to the sea of 10,000 boiling pools. The guard bowed respectfully. Yes. Chapter 866, Sea of 10,000 Boiling Pools. Darren, this is the Sea of 10,000 Boiling Pools. The guard said respectfully. He had been following Zhuemo for these past days and observed all of Zhuemo's speech and conduct. Grandmaster treated the Ghost Lord as an equal without any wariness or restraint. Facing those Mo of low status, Grandmaster still treated them equally. There was no pride, no disdain, he was willing to explain and help. Humbleness when one did not have power was self-protection. Humbleness after possessing power was due to having a noble character and strong self-control. Of all the people he had seen, only Grandmaster behaved like this. This was really a person worthy of respect. Zhuemo did not know what the guard was thinking. His attention was completely attracted to the scene in front of him. Death energy pools of various sizes were spread out into the distance, there was no end. The gray death energy that sprouted out of the pools roiled and spread. From far away, it looked like a gray sea. The gray mists roiled as though they were boiling. This was the cause for the name of Sea of 10,000 Boiling Pools. Spectacular. Zhuemo murmured. The thick and boiling death energy was endless, vast and unfathomable. Zhuemo stood at the border of the Sea of 10,000 Boiling Pools and suddenly felt he was so small in front of such a vast existence. But Zhuemo was God-level and his mind was strong. This feeling only lasted for a moment before disappearing. The feeling of confidence that everything was in his control came back to him. Zhuemo was very curious what it was like under this spectacular sea of 10,000 boiling pools. Where did such a great and vast amount of death energy come from, and why had it formed? Zhuemo could not imagine it. Was the legendary Yellow Springs really under here? When this thought appeared, Zhuemo shook his head and laughed. He was thinking too much. Things like the Yellow Springs did not exist. Those were myths invented by other people. People could be seen all over the Sea of 10,000 Boiling Pools. The Shen methodology of the Yin Tomb Guards could absorb death energy and turn it to Shen power. The Sea of 10,000 Boiling Pools with its vast amount of death energy was undoubtedly one of the best cultivation locations. Let's go in to look around, Zhuemo said. Yes. The guard followed beside Zhuemo with a wary expression and looked around occasionally. Is it not safe here? Zhuemo saw the guard acting like this and couldn't resist asking. The guard's wariness did not waver. As he maintained his cautiousness, he explained, the death energy here is abundant, and it is of great help to cultivation. Everyone likes to cultivate here. With more people coming here, small conflicts cannot be avoided. Someone suggested that the Ghost Lord should take over all of the Sea of 10,000 boiling pools so people would have to pay fees. However, the Ghost Lord did not agree. There are no guards here, and it is slightly chaotic. However, Darren, do not worry, the great majority of people cultivating here are people of the Tomb guards, there will not be any problems. The guard was right. Before the two had walked far, they encountered people along the way that bowed to the guard. I really didn't see it, you have good standing with these people, Swamo said with a smile. The guard was slightly embarrassed, I have served the Ghost Lord for a long time, and my face is familiar. His rank was not low. In a short amount of time, he had gathered many people. The wariness on his face eased. He said to Swamo with a smile, Grandmaster, if you find a place, pick it out and I will have people stand guard. Swamo smiled but did not speak as he moved through the death energy. This was the death energy that was sprouted out of the pools. Because there were too many death energy pools packed closely together, this scene was created. It was possible to see faint figures among many death energy pools. The dense death energy was of great help to the cultivation of these MOs. Swamo had to sigh at the unpredictability of the Tomb Ghost Lord style. Any other power would definitely take control of such a valuable piece of land. But this Tomb Ghost Lord did not do anything with it. He really couldn't understand. Swamo shook his head and suddenly threw of a question he asked the guard, aren't the guards here afraid of being disturbed while cultivating here? They will not be disturbed, the guard said with a smile, Grandmaster may not know that once you enter the state of cultivation, these death energy pools will gather large amounts of death energy around you, forming a shield. This death energy shield is very strong, and it will repel all other powers. Swamo was surprised when he heard this. These death energy pools did have some wonders. Grandmaster? Is this the forging Grandmaster? Someone next to the guard asked curiously. The guard's expression turned cold and he shouted in displeasure, Old Wang, do not overstep. Old Wang shrank back. He feared the guard. Swamo waved his hand. That's fine. Yes, I'm that forging Grandmaster. Most people would not call themselves a forging Grandmaster, but Swamo said it so easily as though it was an ordinary matter. However, Swamo's cool expression made the surrounding people believe his claim immediately. These people were experienced and seeing Swamo was easy to talk to, they pressed further. Old Wang said respectfully, Grandmaster, will you forge shin equipment for me? No matter the conditions as long as I can accomplish them. The guard glared harshly at Old Wang and was about to start scolding. Old Wang knew he was about to be scolded but a chance like this was too rare. If he passed it by, it would definitely not come back. He shrank back but he still looked with anticipation at Swamo. Swamo said with a smile, shin equipment, I have a lot of. Let me ask you something. If you can answer, I will give you one. Old Wang's eyes lit up and he asked impatiently, what does Grandmaster wish to know? Ask. In the Sea of 10,000 boiling pools, which place has the highest concentration of death energy? I will give a piece of shin equipment. Swamo still had a smile. I know. Old Wang was clever and said rapidly, the place with the highest concentration of death energy in the Sea of 10,000 boiling pools is of course the Death Eye. Everyone else had expressions of vexation. They were a step late. They hadn't expected the Grandmaster to ask such a simple question. Swamo saw the expressions of everyone else and knew what this person said was the truth. He said briskly, I'm giving you a piece of shin equipment, wait for a moment. His hand flipped and a piece of shin equipment appeared on his hand. He had kept this Mo Cloud shin equipment from the past but it was not suited for nether shin power. Swamo beckoned, hiss, a large wave of death energy flowed suddenly towards the shin equipment in his hand. Gray spread quickly along the shin equipment. Where the gray color passed through, complex Mo matrices took form at a visible rate. The shin equipment seemed to be alive as it twisted and changed shape. Many long spikes appeared. No one had seen such a fantastical method of forging. They gaped in speechlessness. Even the guard's eyes were wide as he stared at the Shin equipment in Zhuo Mo's hands. About 15 minutes later, Zhuo Mo finished modifying the Shin equipment. The Shin equipment that had been refined with death energy looked completely different than before. It had a cruder appearance, and many spikes. It looked slightly ugly. Zhuo Mo threw the Shin equipment to Old Wang. "For you." Old Wang could not bear to keep his hands away. He quickly put it on. The ugly gray Shin equipment seemed vicious and savage when it was worn. The dense spikes were fearsome. Old Wang was overjoyed. He channeled Shin power and the spikes on the surface of the Shin equipment seemed to come alive. The gray spikes formed into little gray snakes the size of fingers. These gray snakes were nimble and lifelike as they hissed. Nether snake Shin methodology. Weren't Old Wang's nether snakes always unable to take form? The Shin equipment is so powerful. The crowd started to discuss. Their gazes when they stared at Zhuo Mo became heated. Zhuo Mo did not plan on wasting time here. He turned and asked the guard, "Do you know where the Death Eye is?" The guard had a hesitant expression. "Grandmaster, the Death Eye is where the death energy is greatest in the sea of 10,000 boiling pools, but there is so much death energy there that we cannot get in easily." "Oh, take me for a look, just a look from a distance is fine." Zhuo Mo saw the hesitation of the guard and said, "All right." The guard did not hesitate and turned to everyone else. He shouted, "You can all leave, stop watching." He then said to Old Wang, "Old Wang, you got a bargain this time, lead the way." "All right." Old Wang said joyfully and lead the way at the front. The guard turned to explain to Zhuo Mo, "Grandmaster, the death energy in the region leading up to the Death Eye is too dense. We cannot fly and have to travel on foot." "All right," Zhuo Mo nodded and said. The Nether realm was composed of Mo. While the Nether guards were slightly strange, the Mo here still had strong bodies. They could not learn the Shin glyphs of the Xiuzhi, but it was not difficult for them to use Shin power to refine their bodies. Zhuo Mo had found a long time before that the bodies of the Tomb Ghost Lord and the others had strong bodies, ones even stronger than him. Zhuo Mo was even sure that if a flying sword cut at the skeleton Gu Wu Shuang, not even a spark would fly. The Shen methodology of the Tomb guards contained a great amount of death energy. The deeper they cultivated, the stranger their bodies would become, just like the Ghost Lord, Gu Wu Shuang, and the others. Fortunately, Zhuo Mo had eliminated the rampaging burning flows in his body. His body was at its most unburdened state and he was not pressured trying to keep up. "Grandmaster is Grandmaster, I hadn't expected your body to be so strong as well." Old Wang couldn't help but say. Everyone else was also surprised. From Zhuo Mo's skill at forging, almost everyone felt that Zhuo Mo was a Xiuzhi. The Nether realm did not have anyone that could forge at such a level. Everyone felt that Grandmaster was mysterious. He was not affected by the death energy, his body did not appear strong yet was filled with strength like Mo, and nothing more had to be said of his forging skill. Zhuo Mo smiled and did not explain. Suddenly, he felt something and his pupils suddenly contracted. He stopped walking and said coolly, "The friend up front, come out." The guard and the others were experienced fighters. Hearing this, their expressions changed slightly and they quickly surrounded Zhuo Mo in the middle and turned to face the enemy. Old Wang had been timidly shrinking back and earlier, now, stood at the front of the group bravely. A blurry figure appeared out of the gray death energy ahead. Chapter 867 Person in the cloak. Old Wang shouted and to charge at the other, his form turning into a gray shadow. The other did not dodge as though they had not detected anything worthy of notice. Old Wang became slightly angry. He snorted, "You want to die." The Nether Snake Shin methodology that he cultivated was unlike other people. Other people used it to be unpredictable, but he was on a path of brute force. Threads of gray energy gathered on his right arm. Hiss hiss hiss, the little snakes on his gray shin equipment made from the spikes quickly moved towards his arm. A gray shadow of a snake appeared behind Old Wang. It coiled with its head upright as it hissed. Old Wang's presence reached a peak. Pushing off the ground, he jumped into the air. His body was twisted up strangely like that of an enormous constrictor. Kill! The shout was like thunder. Old Wang's right fist was like a whip. Boom! A heart-shaking tremble spread in ripples. Old Wang's figure disappeared in the air. Pia! A clear sound of collision. A snowy white hand grabbed Old Wang's fist. The other's figure did not move a sliver. A hint of gray appeared on Old Wang's face. He snickered, his twisted body suddenly producing a powerful force. His fist that was captured by the other suddenly broke free, and he attacked again. The other had not expected Old Wang to break free of his hold. But the enemy reacted quickly, the grab turning into a slap that headed for Old Wang's fist. Old Wang's expression became even more savage. In the span of a blink, he punched out 12 times. The 12 punches were like lightning. Those that were weak were only able to see a blurry figure of a fist. The other's attack matched Old Wang. Snap! The 12 punches sounded just like one. The sound of the collision was deep and muffled. The other moved 3 steps back. Old Wang's figure shook. His face was gray and pale. This, 12 echoes, was his strongest move. Each of the lightning-fast 12 punches was stronger than the previous one. He had never failed to injure his opponent with this move. This was able to easily destroy a mountain. Right now, he was wearing shin equipment, and was in the death energy pool. He was at his optimal condition. This, 12 echoes, was the strongest attack he ever produced. Such a strong, 12 echoes, was only able to force the other back 3 paces. Old Wang's expression changed. He was an experienced fighter. Almost instantaneously, he judged that the other was much more powerful than he was. An expert. The other's gaze landed on Old Wang and he praised, "This shin equipment isn't bad." Everyone finally saw the appearance of the intruder. This person was thin and tall. He wore a cloak and his entire body seemed to be enveloped in darkness. This person's face was almost completely covered by the shadow of the cloak. The guard's heart sank. He knew Old Wang well, and he had experienced Old Wang's killing move for himself before. He had a hard time withstanding Old Wang's 12 echoes, even at a usual time. That 12 echoes, just now was almost 3/10 stronger than what Old Wang could usually produce. He would not be able to withstand it himself. But this person had done so unharmed and was only forced 3 steps back. This kind of power was not one that they could match. The guard did not panic. This was the territory of the Yin Tomb guards. The other's plan would not succeed so easily. The other didn't have any death energy on him and clearly had not been in the 10,000 tombs of the underworld for long. This person definitely did not know why the sea of 10,000 boiling pools did not forbid battle, but no big fight had ever occurred here. The guard smiled coldly inside. This one admires Grandmaster's skill. An ethereal voice came out of the cloak. This one sincerely invites Grandmaster to be a guest at our mansion for a few days. Grandmaster, please do us the honor. Zuemo said coolly, I do not like interacting with people that do not show their face. Kiki, Grandmaster should not just look at the appearance. The other laughed softly. Grandmaster, do not worry. As long as Grandmaster is willing to cooperate, anything can be given to you. Beauties, treasure, Grandmaster can have whatever you want. When you come to our place, Grandmaster will know what is heaven. It is much better than this stupid place. His tone was enticing. Zuemo looked sarcastically at the other. Why don't you ask the opinion of the owner here? The other said with a smile, this one will accomplish this today. Your tone is so great. A dissonant and muffled voice suddenly sounded. A figure completely covered in cloth floated slowly out of the death energy. It was one of the Tomb fire ghosts, Buru Mian. The other's figure suddenly froze. When Buru Mian appeared, the surrounding death energy seemed to come alive. Seeing Buru Mian appear, the guard sighed in relief. Gu Wu Shuang Darren lived along at Billion Bone Peak, while Buru Mian Darren usually stayed in the sea of 10,000 boiling pools. Anyone that frequented these two places knew that the reason there were never big fights in the enormous sea of 10,000 boiling pools was because of Buru Mian Darren. Buru Mian Darren had a savage temper, he was cruel and emotionless. Angering him was a fate worse than death. Bu Darren. The guard hurriedly bowed. Little Hua, take Grandmaster to see some other places, doesn't have to be long. It has been so long since I encountered a fresh body. So exciting. Buru Mian's voice was still displeasing to hear, but his tone could be considered polite. The guard was one of the Ghost Lord's attendants after all. Yes. Little Hua hurriedly retreated with Swa Mo and disappeared into the death energy. Tomb Ghost, Buru Mian. The cloaked person suddenly spoke. Want to ask for mercy? Heh heh, too late. Buru Mian's dissonant voice echoed in the air. Ask for mercy. A bloody red curve lit up in the shadow covering the face that was filled with amusement. Buru Mian stilled. The other's reaction wasn't quite right. Darren, just wait for a while, Bu Darren will quickly finish the battle, Little Hua said to Zhuemo. He was filled with confidence in Buru Mian. No worries, I'm not in a hurry. Zhuemo smiled. However, he did not think this inside. His Shen power had not recovered, but his cultivation was stronger than all those here. In his view, the person in the cloak was at the same power level as Buru Mian. Also, his perception was more sensitive than everyone else. He noticed that the cloaked person had appeared panicked when Buru Mian appeared, but his presence hadn't been affected at all. This showed that the other had been pretending to panic. That meant that there were other plans, Zhuemo thought amusedly. Little Hua turned his face and asked Old Wang in concern. Old Wang, are you alright? Old Wang forced a smile and said, fine, I just haven't recovered. That guy is really strong. I am wearing Shen equipment and used my ultimate move, but I only forced him back 3 paces, so embarrassing. Huh, it must be that Old Wang worked too hard last night and your legs are soft today. Someone shouted and caused a wave of laughter. The pressure the cloaked person had given them was too strong, and having relaxing now, everyone felt a wave of weakness. No one noticed a ball of grey mist silently spreading beneath their feet. Zhuemo was the first to detect it. The sea of 10,000 boiling pools was grey throughout, and it was extremely difficult to detect the grey mist in the death energy. If Zhuemo was not already on his guard, he probably would have fallen for it as well. The grey mist came extremely quickly. Almost in the blink of an eye, it surrounded everyone. Little Hua seemed to detect something, but before he could make a sound, he fell down like a plank of wood. Bam bam. The other people fell over on their faces like planks of wood. Their faces were ashen, their bodies as rigid as metal and tense. Such a strong bewitching fragrance. Even though Zhuemo had sealed his nose and mouth, his body still felt slightly numb. The grey mist was trying to permeate into his skin. At this time, the golden bead that he had formed detected the invasion of an outside. The sun-shin glyph on the surface of the golden bead lit up and a thread of burning sun flow shot through Zhuemo's body. Everywhere it passed, the grey mist was ignited and burned away. Zhuemo pretended to also be afflicted and fell down as well. Secretly, he woke up those guys in his ring. Zhuemo's ring had been reforged and many of the materials that they had found in the Endless Voice had been added. The space inside was now enormous. Also, Zuemo had put the scraps of the wood used to make the shenwood coffins in as well. The vitality inside the ring was abundant and suitable for resting and recovery. Everyone liked to rest inside. Black Gold dazedly woke up from his sleep. He opened his loose eyes and muttered blearily. Wake. Stein to eat. Of all the words, the only one that Black Gold said clearly was eat. The ghost mist child floated out of the mist eye tablet. He yawned and produced a white mist bubble. He rubbed his eyes as he said, Master. 10th grade and Sunshine also flew out. 10th grade forever looked murderous and Sunshine always looked bashful and embarrassed. Prepare to fight. Zuemo told them mentally. 10th grade immediately became excited. His little eyes were wide as he caressed his blade and was yearning to go. The ghost mist child also woke up. Sunshine started to prepare. Only Black Gold didn't even open his eyes as he muttered, so sleepy, you go first. Zuemo said coldly, then only you three will share the spoils. The Black Gold seal soldier who had been unable to open his eyes just now immediately jumped up. There was no drowsiness on his face as he beat his chest. He said righteously, Big brother, what are you saying? Born to battle. Battle, that is the meaning of my existence. Big brother, just you watch as I beat them like dogs. His face twisted and became savage as he said hatefully, disturbing the sleep of the great Black Gold Darren, their outcome will be to be burned to ashes by the fire of Black Gold. The people inside the ring immediately prepared for battle. The Black Gold seal soldier beat his chest and stomped his feet as he howled upwards. The ring was filled with sound of metallic clanging. The crescent blade jumped back and forth between 10th grade's hands as it gleamed with cold light. It reflected the murderousness of 10th grade's face. The ghost mist child turned into the mist giant. Boom boom, the enormous body paced through the ring's space. A ball of light floated at every one of Sunshine's fingers. Each ball was of a different color. 10 different colors. He licked his lips. Their eyes were bloodshot as they waited for Zuemo's orders. It had been so long since they fought. Our great axe is hungry. Chapter 868, Counterattack. The grey mist started to spread. Two shadows silently approached the people lying on the ground with a chilling smugness on their faces. This plan had been carefully executed. They had targeted the death energy pools after discovering that the forging grandmaster was interested in the death energy pools. They thought of the sea of 10,000 boiling pools and speculated that the forging grandmaster would definitely go into the death eye. So successful, a male voice sounded near Zuemo, ha, our luck is very good this time. This person's expert guard is not with him today. Otherwise, we will have to put more effort. This time, the one that spoke was a female. That will not take much effort, the male said unconcernedly. The rumors are always exaggerated. How powerful can a little child be? Let's carefully abduct this forging guy, careful, this person is very precious. Do not hurt him. Kill the others, the female said easily. Aleng will probably take a while. That disgusting Buru Mian is still strong. It will not be easy for Aleng to win. Pity that we cannot watch such a spectacular battle, the male said with regret. Stop chatting and work, the female said impatiently. She bent down and prepared to pick up Zuemo. Just as her hand was about to touch Zuemo, she had a feeling of danger. Her expression changed dramatically and she moved back. A bloody sword light suddenly lit up from under Zuemo's arm. A bloodthirsty and savage sword essence shot out like a hiding vicious beast. The blood light charged straight at her face. The female felt as though her head was compressed by the pressure. There seemed to be a sea of blood in front of her. Bloody shadows flew out of the bloody sea. These bloody shadows started to twist, viciously and savagely. Not good. The female knew the danger. She suddenly spewed out grey mist. The grey mist looked soft, but it managed to stop this bloody sword energy. The female felt regret as she retreated. She had been too careless. How could a forging grandmaster not have a treasure up his sleeve? The dying throes of a forging grandmaster was as powerful as expected. That grey mist was the 10,000 sand mist that she had expended great effort to gather and forge. They looked soft and weak, but it was actually made from hundreds of specks of thousand nether sand that looked minuscule but were extremely heavy. This was her life-saving treasure. She never used this unless it was a matter of life and death. 108 beads of thousand nether sand. It had taken her countless amounts of Shen power and repeated refining to form this nether sand breath mist. To stop this vicious sword blow at this dangerous moment. Suddenly, a ray of white light shot through the grey mist. The grey mist immediately rippled and changed. Shen glyphs flickered in and out of view of the grey mist. The female was almost stunned by the following scene. The lights flashed with grey, red, purple, blue light and other colors like a rainbows as they shot through the grey mist. The Shen glyph light in the grey mist fluctuated and rippled like something had passed through it. The Shen glyph became extremely unstable. When the 10th ray of light shot through the grey mist, the Shen glyph within the grey mist was unable to withstand it and shattered. The female's body shook as though she was struck by lightning. The nether sand breath mist was defeated. But at this time, she did not have time to grieve. Now free of the grey mist, the blood-colored sword essence headed towards her like a wave of blood. The sound of wails and cries filled her eyes. The female knew it was time to fight for her life. She gathered her Shen power and prepared to counterattack before her death. However, this sword light was stronger than she had imagined. Countless figures formed and dissipated in front of her. She found to her shock that she was unable to move. She was experienced in combat. All of her Shen power exploded. The pressure eased and the bloody shadows immediately disappeared. She straightened her arms and covered her face. Hiss! The sword light flashed through her wrists. Her wrists broke and her 2 hands flew into the sky. The female showed a hint of pain, but viciousness flashed through her eyes. Her hands that were in the air suddenly scattered into a handful of sand. The black sand turned into sand arrows that shot towards Wayamo on the ground. Shen glyphs could be seen within every sand arrow. Her body quickly turned into a puddle of black flowing sand at a visible rate. Her eyes stared hatefully at Wayamo. Snap snap snap. A small and exquisite shield of light appeared in front of Wayamo. The transparent light shield was filled with exquisite and packed Shen glyphs. The shield of light was unexpectedly hard. When the black sand arrows hit it, it was like rain hitting banana leaves. Ripples formed on the surface of the light shield. Sunlight's body appeared by Zhuomo's shoulder. 10th grade howled, his body spinning, and the crescent blade drew out 2 spinning lights of blood. The flowing sand on the ground was like water. It started to sink into the soil at a visible rate. Zhuomo opened his eyes. Where was signs of his affliction? Seeing the other intending to flee, Zhuomo's expression was cold. He pressed his hand down. The surrounding death energy flowed faster into the ground and the ground became as hard as metal. Zhuomo did not have any Shen power in his body. He could not fight against the other, but with his god-level cultivation, he could easily make escape difficult for the other. 10th grade flew into the sky had reached his peak state. His murderous little face became unusually dignified. His eyes suddenly glared as his arms came down towards the sand on the ground. He shouted, "Kill!" The crescent blade that spun around him suddenly disappeared. Ding! A clear metallic ringing sound occurred in the air. The flowing sand on the ground seemed to detect danger. It suddenly flew out of the ground and went to engulf Zhuomo like a net. The crescent blade struck into the flowing sand. The sand shield stilled in the air and was pinned to the ground. The bloody shadow that trailed behind the crescent blade smashed onto the flowing sand without any finesse. An extremely harsh scream. The flowing sand suddenly lit aflame. The figure of the female appeared into the flames. She twisted her body in pain, screams coming out. Gradually, the screams gradually weakened. The body of the female gradually faded until it disappeared. The female's figure disappeared. The black flowing sand was dim as they floated around Zuemo. The ghost mist child silently came out of Zuemo's ring. He turned into threads of mist. Hiding within the grey mist, he slowly flowed and crept towards the enemy. While the two enemies spoke, he sneaked up behind the male. After being together with little Mo Go for so long, even the ferocious and domineering mist giant showed signs of corruption. The moment 10th grade moved, he also unhesitatingly struck. The mist energy suddenly wrapped around the enemy like chains. At the same time, the mist giant shouted, "Mist!" The mist suddenly tightened around the male. At the same time, mist erupted out of the mist eye tablet like a dam that was opened. The mist swallowed the male. The moment the mist tightened, the male detected danger. He shouted. A grey glyph lit up on his right hand. His body suddenly expanded, his skin visibly hardening and turning into grey scales. His body, muscles, and bones continued to move and change. As his body continued to change, his presence increased in power. The white mist around him was repelled by an unseen force. Suddenly, the scream of a female sounded. His body shook, but then his presence erupted. His body was more than a zhang tall, his entire body covered in grey scales. There were packed shin glyphs on every scale. Sharp bone spikes grew out of his hands and feet. His eyes became yellow snake-like pupils, cold and emotionless. His presence became 5 times stronger. Suemo was curious. It was the first time he saw a Shin methodology like this. He was not surprised that Mo would use Shin power to refine their body. However, the transformation still caused Suemo's eyes to light up. Suemo's eyes darted up and down as he studied the other's body like he was watching a beautiful female. Such an unique cultivation method. Such unique Shin glyphs. Under Suemo's god-level gaze, everything was seen. However, Suemo was still filled with surprise. This world never lacked for intelligent people. Someone was able to create such an unique Shin glyph and unique cultivation method. The mist giant's fight with the other was intense. The mist giant's roars boomed. Among the flooding mist, its enormous body was like a mountain. While the enemy was only 1 zhang tall, his presence was a match for the mist giant. He was wrapped in terrifying presence, and his cold eyes stared unyieldingly as he faced the attacks of the mist giant. The two's fighting was completely physical, a contest of strength. The enormous axe of the mist giant was ferocious as though it was cleaving the world open. The male that had transformed was like a prehistoric Mo beast. Its body was stronger than steel. The Shin glyph on his scales occasionally flashed, and the power in his movements could upturn mountains. Boom boom boom. The sounds echoed in the mist sea. With every collision of savage power, countless ripples spread into the surroundings with every collision. Suemo quickly found that the mist giant was gradually losing. The enemy was as fast as lightning, and his ability to dodge was great. Even Suemo was slightly shocked. His body seemed to contain endless power as though he did not know exhaustion. The mist giant's rain of mist balls was being suppressed by the other with their greater speed and power. While Suemo knew that as long as the mist sea was present, the mist giant would be fine, he was still surprised by the present situation. The black gold seal soldier's blood boiled at his battle and his eyes were bright. "Big brother, let me go." Suemo shook his head. "Let's wait and see." Suemo had never seen this new cultivation method. He was very curious. He wanted to see what the other would do. Buru Miao was fighting intensely with the enemy and all of the sea of 10,000 boiling pools was shaking. Everyone was attracted by that battle. On Zhuo Mo's side, the mist giant's mist sea formed a barrier. All of the vibrations of the battle rippled in the mist sea, but the noise outside was not large enough to attract attention. The mist giant was being suppressed, but he was not in danger. Also, the mist giant was used to suppressing enemies with brute force. Of all of Zhuo Mo's sidekicks, the mist giant was the one-track-minded brute. If it was the black gold seal soldier, he would have changed tactics a long time ago. The mist giant watched as his mist balls would be smashed by the other just as it flew up. The rate that the mist balls that flew out could not match the enemy's rate at smashing them. At this time, he had to admit the other was stronger than he was. The suppressed mist giant could only change his style of attacking. The mist giant's attacking methods were actually very basic. However, he had some very depraved experts around him. Therefore, he had learned some moves from them. He disdained using these moves, but when he found that his power was being suppressed, he panicked. When an honest person was forced to panic, they would be devious as well. He could only use that move. A thread of embarrassment flashed through the mist giant's mind, but his movements were not slowed. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.